Hello and welcome to Randomer Nintendo, episode 65. If things seem a little different this episode, that's because, well, they are. Of the three of us here at Randomer Nintendo, two of us bought the Nintendo Switch 2. And in this episode, we are convening the Randomer Nintendo Council of Switch 2 owners, aka the two of us, to share what we think of the hardware, the system features, the games, everything in between after living our first full week of Nintendo's new generation. This is all a long way of saying that Kevin is out of town and we're doing this episode without him, but I'm Jason.
Wait, is that what happened? I thought it was like, hey, you didn't get the Switch 2, you're out.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's really what it is. We're very elitist here, and if you don't own a Switch 2, we disown you.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're still random Nintendo. There's just an in there. We didn't take Nintendo as seriously, but, new console generation, that is kind of where
fresh start.
Yeah, like there are lines that we don't cross. And
if they can redesign Donkey Kong and Mario, we can redesign this podcast back to its roots in the same way and get rid of Kevin for not buying a Switch 2. Yes.
Yeah, if Kevin does come back, you can rest assured that would be because he got a Switch 2.
Or, and hear us out, lawsuit. One of the two will happen. Either he's suing us or he bought a Switch 2. But anyway, I'm Jason. I'm excited to talk about Switch 2. And I guess you're not to my virtual left or right today. You're just virtually across from me because it's just the two of us. Hi, Angel.
Hey, I'm Angel. And I'm also excited to talk about the Switch 2.
Yeah, it's been a fun, what, like 10 days since it came out, give or take?
Has it been 10 days already? Wow.
Has it? Am I mathing correctly there?
Oh, I don't know. I just took your calculation at face value. I guess it has because it came out on June 6th, and it is the 16th as of this recording. That being said, wait, no, that's not true because it came out on the 5th, which means some people got it on the 4th. So if anything, it's been that's a big whoopsie for me. It's like 12 days.
Almost the first 2 weeks. Oof. Yeah.
That being said, though, sure, it's been 12 days since it came out, and yeah, we do have to admit, like, 12 days since probably the most hardcore of the hardcore people have played it, which I guess between us, it's neither of us, because my brother did play it on the 14th. I picked it up Wednesday night, and I set it up, and then my brother ended up, just playing Mario Kart World to his heart's content. I withheld because I wanted to not get a head start, to use Mario Kart lingo, because I was going to have like a little friendly competition at work. And I didn't want them to use, oh, well, you've already played this already, or you've been playing since it came out. Just so that we know where the hierarchy stands. Long story short, I did end up dominating. Not the way I thought. To kind of go on to make the tangent just a tiny bit longer. And we'll elaborate on this later. I didn't want to go all out at the beginning. I played as Bowser, and I just picked the card that I thought looked the coolest. Typically, heavy characters are not what you want to go for if you're playing with a bunch of other people. I think I got 4th place every single time. Switched to a baby character. Proceeded to never lose. But stuff has changed recently, and we'll get into more of that later. And Jason just refused to play it day one because I guess he's also just kind of fizzling out of
All right. Are we doing this? I guess, yeah. Okay, so I guess we are starting. If we're talking about our whole Switch 2 experience, I guess we are starting at day 0 with both of us, I guess. So, yeah, okay. Let's talk about my experience. So for those who have been following the saga, I had some trouble with pre-orders, and then I ended up with 3 of them. So initially, pre-order night, late April, Walmart ended up getting one, but it wasn't going to be available till Friday. It wouldn't arrive to my apartment till Friday. Then struck out with Best Buy, which you had no trouble with, Angel, and realized I had to just try my luck with other things. So I went to GameStop the next day, walked in, 5 p.m., got a pre-order. Great. Fast forward a few weeks, pre-orders hit Nintendo's store, the My Nintendo store. I got an email. I got the pre-orders, and I have 3 Switches. The Nintendo one was not guaranteed for launch day. The Walmart one was Friday, and the GameStop one was a midnight opening on Wednesday. The Friday before launch.
Wait, so why did your
GameStop
Nintendo one not get till Friday where The one that I ordered the Nintendo for a
Well,
friend.
it was not guaranteed.
Oh.
Here's the thing. They just said it would ship standard shipping or overnight, but they couldn't guarantee launch day delivery. And I was like, I need this thing day one. Friday before launch, so June, 2nd or something, GameStop calls and leaves a message on my phone saying, hey, we're canceling our 9 p.m. launch night opening because the mall security didn't want to deal with security for that night. There's a Best Buy in that mall. They didn't say this, but this is the reality. There's a Best Buy in that mall that did have a late night opening because they had their own door to their stores. They didn't need the mall security. But mine, I have 3 Switches now. None of them are launch day. I didn't scalp any of them for what it's worth. The Walmart one went to my friend's mom, and the Nintendo one was delivered to my friend up in Seattle. So everyone got Switches. It was great, but nothing was launch day.
Yeah, like how between my brother and I, we also got 3 Switches. Like one of them went to my brother-in-law. Another one went to our mutual friend who has been on the podcast before in Texas. And of course, the last one went to me. Look at us spreading the Nintendo love.
Yeah, we're like Nintendo Santa Clauses. But, and maybe those should have been canaries in the coal mine that, there wouldn't be stock issues, that we each had 3 at one point. Like, maybe that should have been a warning sign. But I was like, oh, thank God. So anyway, GameStop cancels their 9 p.m. opening, and they say they're going to do Thursday morning. That's launch day. That's still launch. That's still day one. I guess I'll begrudgingly take it. But Wednesday night, there's that Best Buy one. Coincidentally, all my games pre-ordered at Best Buy. So maybe I just go get it at Best Buy that night, right? So now fast forward to 2 nights before launch. This is where the story gets weird. Cleaning out some stuff at my parents' house, came across a ridiculously full drawer of coins. Like a lot of coins. Like, conveniently, the MSRP of the Switch 2 amount of coins. $400 some odd in coins. I don't know how... Like, when kids, break their piggy bank, I'm going to get something cool now I've been saving up for. It's like an action figure or something. Somehow I basically did that over a decade of my youth for a Switch 2, not knowing it. So I go to Coinstar. You only get your money in full value if you turn it into an e-gift card or a gift card, into any number of their partners, one of which, GameStop, where I pre-ordered my Switch 2. How convenient. So now I have $400 allocated for the Switch 2 that I can't get till Thursday. Go to Best Buy Wednesday on my way home from work, where I pre-ordered my games, just to scout out the line. 20 people online. I guess I could get the Switch 2 on launch night. Maybe. Switch number 4 for me. Switch 2 number 4. But then my $400 that I was like, oh, I'm going to use it for the Switch 2. What am I going to use it for? There's no GameStops closer to where I live than the one I pre-ordered at, and I won't have to go to GameStop every single time I get a game. So I don't really, and that, I'm have to do all that for so long. So I made the choice, much to my own horror, that I could have stood in line. I was physically there and saw I could get one on launch night, and I was like, no, I'll get it tomorrow morning. So yeah, I guess in a way I am. My interest is waning. And then here's the worst part. I still went launch night to get my games and my camera accessory from that Best Buy, because when I went at 5 p.m., I asked them, hey, the little medallion coin thing you guys are giving out with purchases on launch night, what's it take to get one? They said any pre-order. And I'm like, awesome. I'll go stand in line for an hour at Best Buy. One of 3 hours I could have stood in line to get the whole console, just to get the coin. Go through the line. They then put the coin behind a credit card requirement. You need to get their Best Buy card. And I was like, well, screw that. Which was dumb that they changed it, but that's another story. Anyway, next morning I go to GameStop. I have to stand in line for an hour and a half to pick up my pre-order because they're a little disorganized. So it's all said and done. I spent the exact amount of time I would have stood in line that night to get it that night to then get it the next day, but spread over 2 days. Never mind the 3 pre-orders I had that were all going different places. So that's my launch story. But I did get it on launch day at least, and very happily played it on launch day. So it still kind of counts. But yeah, the amount of tumultuous back and forth over just getting one of these things, only for it to be so bountifully available, is funny to me. And I appreciate the irony.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard or seen you go through this much.
No, usually I just get it on Best Buy's website and I pick it up that night and I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, that's how mine was. I just went to Best Buy right after work. Well, once I finished, work and other activities, which got me to Best Buy right by my house also, really, really close. And the line was already formed. It was I think I got 5 minutes before 9. So as soon as I got in line, the line started moving. It did still take about an hour for me to reach the front. But then then it's just grab it and go. They did run out of coins, which is unfortunate, but it's also not that big of a deal. Like
I
it's
did
cool,
hear
it's fine.
through the grapevine they're doing a game truck tour at select Best Buys throughout the summer, and some of them have the coin. So you might see me in a truck full of 10-year-olds playing Mario Kart to get a coin in the near future. Yeah, it was just like, you said you waited like an hour, and I remember your pre-order is very easy. For me, I think the pre-order process took like 3 hours online in April. Then there was going to Best Buy the night of. That was another hour. Then there was another hour and a half the next morning. I spent like 6 hours getting something that turns out you can just walk into a store and buy. So that's cool.
Right now?
I think some stores still, as of yesterday, as it was recording, Costco had them readily available. Yep.
Oh, interesting. Because they're definitely not readily available at Best Buy.
I mean, it's in waves. You have to kind of time when you go, but like some stores definitely have them, especially in smaller towns with less demand.
Well,
like Nintendo did a really good job of supplying this thing.
Yeah. I mean that's really good. I honestly, I don't want it to be a drought because that kind of sucks, and also
it does.
I kind of want them to keep their momentum. I mean, this, doesn't happen often, and it kind of sounded like, because I guess it was kind of true, like, overall enthusiasm was kind of waning a little bit on Nintendo as a whole. Not that I was becoming or disliking the company more, just, like I've said many, many times, priorities were changing. Yeah. But, yeah, something about a console launch, and, and we'll get into the hardware soon, but it kind of like... It was nice because it has been a long time, like since the last one. Usually it's like every 5 years, but
this was
I guess it's been long enough that I kind of just forgot, and it was nice to come home with a new console. Sure, it's not like a big difference like PS4 to PS5 or Xbox whatever number it is to Xbox whatever number it is, but yeah, it was really cool. It was exciting, and it definitely.
You got bit by the bug.
Yeah, it brings back the fuzzies, and there were many, many fuzzies to be had. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, and I think
we're gonna get to everything. I keep saying that.
Yeah, we'll get to all this, and even like to your point about it feeling like a new launch. Like one of my takeaways I'll talk about is just like it did capture that excitement of a new console, even though it isn't quite as new in many ways. But I do want to preference everything we're going to say. I mean, you made the point that we haven't played it like nonstop all day, and you waited a day or two. I haven't played it the last 2 days because I was traveling in Seattle. But I do want to preface all this by saying that I think you and I really did put our Switch 2s through their paces once we actually did play them. Like we did. I think independently we've done, between the two of us, we've done TV play, handheld play, single player, multiplayer, one-on-one game chats, group game chats with more people than the number of screens you can have shared at once. I took my Switch 2 on its first airplanes this weekend. We've played with all the configurations of the standard Joy-Con 2s, and I've done the Pro Controller 2, and you've hooked up the Pro Controller 1. I think I've even used Nintendo's official camera accessories. So while this isn't like the be-all, end-all definitive formal review of the Switch 2 from us, like I do think we're coming into this not just having played some Mario Kart for a day or two and calling it quits, but like really using our systems for these at least past 9 or 10 of the last 12 days, right?
Yeah, after abstaining for a couple of days until the aforementioned friendly competition, I pretty much have played the Switch 2 every single day since then, which is, many would say, kind of weird nowadays. Like my brother a few times like straight up called out like, whoa, you're actually turning on a console of your own free will like on a Monday? Or I think it was more like, it's weird seeing you like play a game like, just for fun or like on your own. Because if I do play something, it's usually, on an airplane or some kind of
right
situation where my only option is really just to be on my phone to play a game. Unless it's a co-op game, because I'm actually still playing a lot of those. My brother and I are currently going to do Tales of Vesperia on the PS5. But it's not about that right now. It's about the Switch.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me saying something real quick from these last how many days of experiences. And actually, I lied. I did play it over the weekend in Seattle because I was playing it on the plane. I didn't think about that. But yeah, one thing I did want to say real quick is there's this one thought I've kept having the more I use my Switch 2, and that's that the teams at Nintendo like really understood the assignment here. Like high level, they executed on what the vision of the Switch 2 is extremely well across the board. And we were talking about how like readily available the system was at one point. Like even in terms of how many of these things they have pumped out into the market, they execute on that extremely. Like Nintendo's operating at like full speed right now. Like about a year ago, I don't know if you remember this, but there are always articles. Nintendo's president Satoru Furukawa, he was saying about a year ago that they believe they need to combat scalpers by simply providing enough supply, right? And that's really simple on paper, but it's hard to do with a new hardware launch for a game console. Like it's always hard to meet supply to meet demand with enough supply. Fast forward to launch day, all that drama I was talking about, my pre-orders, and all these questions: is there enough? Will there be scalpers? Whatever. And it turns out Nintendo cranked out like plenty of these things. Like they sold 3.5 million Switch 2s worldwide in 4 days. That is a record not just for Nintendo as the fastest selling hardware in the company's history, but a record for the entirety of video games. For comparison, the previous record holder, Sony, took 16 days to sell 2.1 million PS4s versus 3.5 million Switch 2s in 4 days. And then here in the US, we represented about 1 million of those Switch 2 sales, again, being a domestic record for fastest seller that PS4 previously had. And worldwide, Switch 2 sales are outpacing the launch sales of Switch 1 by a fitting ratio of 2 to 1. So all around, it was quite a resounding success. And there's, like I was saying, stories of like Costco having it, other stores getting inventory. Amazon's about to start selling it. Like Nintendo thawed out that relationship, and Amazon's selling first-party products again. But the reason I mention all this up top, besides a chance to slip into adjacent sales corner, because I love to do it when I can, is that it kind of feels, but it kind of feels like emblematic of basically Nintendo's whole approach to Switch 2. Like we've talked a lot, even last episode, about how the generation maybe isn't, even at the top of this episode, about how the generation maybe isn't as revolutionary feeling as past new Nintendo consoles. I know everyone's heard what was that?
I see what you did there.
Yeah, yes. That wasn't intentional, but yes. Shout out we. But no, I know you guys have heard my spiel, everyone listening, and you, Angel, about how it's like an upgrade to an ecosystem, not a restart. And there's probably all sorts of conversations, speaking of the Wii, about what that could mean for the longer term performance and prospects of the system. It being like an upgrade, how it goes back to Nintendo swimming in the red ocean after the era of Iwata wanting to explore the blue ocean.
The revolution happened with the Switch 1 for sure. This is more like
for sure. And now they're just doubling down. Yeah, and what does that mean for like the longevity? Who knows? But like from what we've experienced in the last 9 or 10 days, like we're talking about the execution of Switch 2 here. And if you look at what Nintendo set out to do with Switch 2, like what they want it to be, how they went about ensuring it did all the things to feel like a proper upgrade of Switch, to have it available, they really did, I feel like, almost universally pull it off. Like the same way they said, look, we're going to make this console bountifully available, and execute on that super well. It feels true. The more I use it, pretty much every facet of the system, like they nailed the assignment. Like for folks like me who are worried it didn't feel like enough of a leap in terms of new experiences, like we were kind of saying before, there's enough here in the new hardware, the quality of life improvements, little nips and tucks, GameChat. I did get that feeling of, so the fuzzies you described, like that, so shiny and new. Like I felt it, and it's exciting that we now are at the point where we can like talk about what it's like to own one and play one and things like that, which we probably should get into. We've done a lot of preface, like 18 minutes of preface. Unless there's anything you want to add before I turn it over to you for your hardware thoughts.
No, just great. I mean, obviously experiences vary between person to person. For stories of people that had a terrible time, if my sole pre-ordering goal was to get it through Target, I probably would have been really upset, but it wasn't, and I didn't, and
I shouldn't sugarcoat that. It was so easy to get. People still had struggles. People still had to wait. But like compared to past consoles, man, this thing was like readily available relatively speaking.
Yeah. Let's just jump right in.
We should dive into all of it, big and small.
To a different topic.
Hey, let's start with hardware. Angel, I'm actually really curious what you think about the hardware, because I obviously gave my initial once-over to you in April when I first tried it, but this was your first time, like, using the system. So what do you think? And more importantly, how much do you love those magnets and the Joy-Cons? They're very satisfying to me. Do you find them satisfying?
I find them fine. Like, my initial thought was
that's not the answer I was looking for. Shut it down. Shut it down.
I mean, everyone that seems to like play with it, they're like, ooh, these feel really nice. Like, I don't know. They're nice and strong, but like, they weren't anything that I did not derive pleasure from them. I just think they were like, yeah, this makes sense.
Well, now you make me sound like a creep. Like I
no,
did derive pleasure
well,
from the,
you
from
know,
the
like, but there were
I
other
know
things
what you mean.
though.
I know what you mean.
Like,
Yeah.
like
So
initially, like I think that just grabbing the Joy-Cons by themselves also didn't feel too impressive. If anything, you know, like they felt a little weird, but you know, they obviously feel more comfortable than the Joy-Con ones. But once I put the whole console together, you know, in its full form factor, uh, it's funny because yeah, even though it's the same thickness as the previous Switch, it feels significantly thinner, while also feeling a lot more sturdy. Like, I mean, you know, like, and maybe you share this sentiment too, but like to me, it feels like a premium product. It feels nice and like a fancy Switch 2, pretty much like what I would have wanted. You know, I've always trusted and haven't really been led astray by Nintendo's like build quality. Sure, Joy-Con drift, sure, there's other stuff, but you know, just from personal experience, it's always been fine to me. So like, yeah, I can feel for and I empathize for like the majority of the public that deals with that stuff, but I can't deny the fact that they personally haven't let me down. So, you know, I could continue to back that same horse. But yeah, it feels really great on hand. I love how big it feels even before you compare it to the other Switch, which, you know, I obviously had on hand, like you, I'm sure, to do the transfer. And then you see like, whoa, this thing is really huge. It's almost like the whole Switch practically fits on just the screen, which
well, especially
is
you
really
because
cool.
you went from a regular Switch. I had an OLED, which was slightly bigger when I did my transfer.
Which is funny because like, while I will still definitely, you know, as I usually do, I mean, at home, you know, use it on the TV if it's available. We're finally reached a point where I guess it hit that sweet spot on screen size where I'm like, maybe I do see myself playing certain games in handheld mode and be okay with that. Like not as like a like because there's no other choice, but more as like a today I just feel like playing in handheld mode. Haven't quite done that yet, but everything looks nice enough that I see myself finishing certain games like Pizza Tower or Final Fantasy VII, or on my trip to Japan soon, I do plan on picking up Undertale and Deltarune to finish on the plane, just because I've always been curious about those games and it feels like a good time to beat something like that. And yeah, and be okay with it not being on the TV. But sure, there are things like Donkey Kong Bonanza when that comes out, that or Metroid Prime 4 that, you know, that by force that has to be on the TV. I am not even going to entertain playing that in handheld mode. But yeah, been super satisfied with the hardware overall. I mean, I personally like how big and round the dock is. Sure, does it have to be bigger? It's not that much bigger that I feel like completely dwarfs where the space the other dock I used to have, you know, rested. That's been fine. The power adapter, it's like a little chubbier, but it's also like shorter, which is a little nicer.
I don't like the power adapter. I have a note about that on my notes I'll get to later.
Yeah, it is kind of weird that it's like nice with separated.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's that the cord isn't flush. Like it sticks out now.
Oh, I see.
Like the Switch 1 cord is flush. I'll get to it.
Yeah. It does stick out from the top, which the other one, you know, and those things are, you know, that just comes down to where you have your devices, because sometimes that is a problem, sometimes that isn't a problem. The way I have my things connected, it coming out from the top is perfectly fine. But that being said, though, and you pointed this out first before I really noticed it, all the cables are pretty short. Thankfully,
yes,
where my Switch 1 was connected was more than enough distance for the new HDMI cable to be connected, but it doesn't leave me much much options to change it to the other side of the TV, where the other HDMI cable did.
But yeah, you know what? Let's talk about these, because I have nitpicks here too. I hate to start on nitpicks because there's so much but yeah, the cables in the box. Like this is like, if we're talking, like there's a lot of things the Switch does better. One thing that's definitely a downgrade are the cable. Well, it's weird because they are and they aren't. Like, so Switch 2, for those who are unaware, does have a more advanced version of HDMI that lets do HDR and 120 hertz and all that jazz. You know, it's great for like doing 120 FPS. that cable, as you're saying, Angel, is shorter than the Switch ones by like a foot at least, right? Like, I know you're saying yours still kind of read. My TV has all of its HDMI plugs over on the left side, yet I keep my primary game console, which is now the Switch 2, on the right side. And if it wasn't for one random HDMI port sort of in the middle of the back of my TV, it literally wouldn't reach. It just seems odd that like Nintendo's improving all these aspects of the Switch, and yet they take away the flexibility of like play however you want, except don't play how your entertainment center was previously set up. Scoot it closer, maybe. Like I realize it's like a 100% first world problem for us poor adults who bought $450 console on our fancy schmancy 4K TVs, but like it's weird they shortened it. Weird cost cutting measure. Similarly, you mentioned the AC adapter. I wanted to elaborate on that real quick. Yeah, so the cord's not flush. That's what I was saying before, right? Like the cord on the Switch 1, it's a brick, and then the cord just kind of comes out the side of the brick. It's like flat. On this one, like you're saying, you plug it in directly. And like the way my entertainment center is set up, I have AC adapters all plugged into a surge protector under a stand, under like the center console. And it's hidden and it's flush and it looks great. And it was like a 20-minute struggle to figure out how to make the AC adapter with that added height of this cord piece that now sticks out the top, how to make it fit down there. Like I ended up having to unplug everything, turn the power strip sideways, and I could barely fit the height of the space with the cord plugged in, because once it was plugged in, the prongs obviously were lower, so it wasn't as high overall. But like all's well that ends well. But like you had a great quality of life type approach in making the cord flush on the Switch 1 adapter and having these cords be a certain length, and then you undid them, Nintendo. Why did you undo them? Anyway, that's my rant. Back to you.
Well, I did immediately try as soon as I could to get a screen protector on it. I did. It's the fact that the screens are made of plastic still makes me nervous. Not because I am going to be rough with it, but my Switch usually tends to be the Switch that goes to many people's houses for party play, and with that kind of
have you seen that the dock's debris in the dock, not necessarily debris from the factory, just debris in the dock is scratching the screen, so you might be smart, like the Switch 1 had. So you might actually be pretty smart in doing that and having your protector, even if you're not the party Switch.
Well, that works. Because, I always had a screen protector on in the original one. Plus, I also always had a cozy, or a koozie, whatever they're called, on my original one. It was like a sock for the dock that had a Bowser logo on it.
A dock sock?
Yeah, a dock sock, if you will. I need to see if the people I bought this one from will make a new one for the Switch 2. Because, it's obviously not going to fit, and I would like to have a Bowser-themed one again.
Mm-hmm.
But... yeah, otherwise, I also got a little carrying case from a company called Proco or something like that, or Tomtalk. I forgot what it was. It was one of those two. It was kind of recommended. It was recommended by a few people at work, and it's pretty neat. It's a nice, cheap, affordable alternative to a lot of the first-party ones. I didn't want one with like crazy logos on it. It does have a tiny logo on the side. It's kind of weirdly colored. I might try to remove it later, but I like it. It gets the job done. I just need something small and compact that won't press the sticks in. But I guess speaking of Bowser-themed ones, and I guess this might be a way to transition to that. So I technically have 6 Pro Controllers. One of them, the Smash Brothers Pro Controller, is retired because it's experienced so much Smash Brothers that the analog stick, the rubber on top, literally wore off, so now it's kind of uncomfortable to use. That one I just leave in the game room at work, or we'll just bring home occasionally for like emergencies. And then I also have the 8-bit Pro 2 Duo, which works as a Pro controller, a Mac controller, a PC controller. I use it for a little bit of everything. And then I have 3 other normal Pro controllers and one Bowser themed PDP, and they all still work, which is great because I'm not about to like buy a new Pro 2 controller when the only difference is buttons on the map that I don't plan on remapping for anything, because half the time, especially if they're on the bumpers, unless you're playing maybe a first person shooter, in a more competitive way, I don't know. I can't find too many reasons to ever remap anything. And I just find, I don't know, when you play games tensely, you tend to squeeze a lot, and I don't want to accidentally press a button back there. The
Yeah,
only
I've
thing,
noticed I've tapped it on the Pro 2 sometimes.
yeah,
Nothing was mapped to it, but I've done it. Yeah.
yeah, like the Bowser controller that I have does have mappable buttons on the back, but I just disabled them. The only thing that the Pro 2 controller, well, I guess there's technically two things, maybe, but the biggest thing is the chat button, which I normally wouldn't care about. Yeah, the chat feature is fine, and we'll get more into that into the OS, but just having a dedicated button, yeah, I can see the benefits to it. It is kind of annoying to press the home button and then go through a couple screens just to change a setting, but I can live with that, and I guess I could just have a Joy-Con near me just to press that, which feels kind of ridiculous, but we'll see.
It is, frankly, kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, but the other thing that is also 100% a first world problem is, I guess, Switch Pro Controller version 1s, or I guess, yeah, version 1s that we'll call them, can't turn on the Switch 2. You have to
This is
turn on the
correct.
Switch 2 wirelessly with your Switch 2 Joy-Cons, and then the Pro Controllers can sync to them, which seems really weird. If this is like their way of going, like, to inconvenience you just enough to make you want to get a Switch 2 Pro Controller, it's kind of working. Like, it is kind of annoying me enough to consider it, because before it was zero chance I was getting one. Now it's, well, maybe I might as well, but I think I'm still, I've just been keeping the Joy-Cons handy
Yeah.
in the grip. I don't actually like using the Joy-Con 2s on the grip. They don't feel great on the grip for some reason. They feel fine separated, like I normally would use them anyway, but
They
yeah,
do
now
feel a
they're
little more
basically just a remote.
saucer-like, for lack of a better term. Like maybe because they're more rounded and the grip has a little bit of a
Yeah, this one
to
feels
it.
flat. Maybe, I mean, is the electrical charging one, I guess, have a more rounder
I have
grip?
no idea. Well, I mean,
But
I imagine these are flat because, and I learned this from Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour for $10. That they actually made the grips be flatter so you could stand them up vertically when storing them. I don't know if that's
oh,
why they're flatter, but they said they made the design be standable, so that might be why it's flat. Yeah.
well, I can't stand for it.
Hey, I see what you did there. Yeah. So I have a Pro 2, and it's very nice to tap that home button and have it go bloop bloop because now the Switch makes a noise when you turn it on, which is fun. But it's nice to have it go bloop bloop and turn on remotely. I'm living the first world life. Maybe my cords are too short and maybe my AC adapter isn't the right shape, but man, I can press that button from across the room and get that satisfying bloop bloop.
Mm.
So, because yeah, it does work with the Pro. I can confirm the Pro Controller 2 does it correctly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a shame.
I will
'Cause,
say,
yeah,
since,
it is like, what, 80
yeah,
bucks, 90 bucks,
like 85 or something. I'm not sure. I got it as a gift from Rachel. I'm not sure how much it was, but there is something kind of. So you touched on the size. Surprisingly, you touched on you're kind of getting tempted to get the Pro Controller, and you that kind of reminds me of something that I wanted to bring up, which is what's kind of interesting to me about the size and the Pro Controller in a different way. Starting with the size, it felt like a much more substantial upgrade using it in day-to-day life than when I held it or played it at the Switch 2 experience. I guess because the context was different, right? Like at home, when I'm sitting on the couch as I normally would, or when I'm sitting in the middle of the seat of an airplane between Rachel and my sister-in-law, I definitely had multiple moments of like, wow, this screen is big. Like it just takes up much more of the field of like view, or in the case of the airplane, that much more elbow room in a crowded seat. And to be clear, I do mean bigger in like a good way. Like I appreciate the added scale. I mean, I know you're saying how like you might actually play stuff in handheld mode, but like the controls feel more spacious. The longer shoulder buttons feel really great, especially in Mario Kart when you're like constantly using them to drift and to do items and stuff. But also, I mean like bigger in maybe a weight distribution way. Like I don't know if bigger is the right word here, but I did have this problem occasionally with my Switch OLED where if I played not occasionally, pretty frequently, where if I played too long, my hands would actually sometimes start to fall asleep because I guess how the weight is on the Switch 2 and how I held it. I mean, on the Switch OLED. But for the Switch 2, I haven't had that issue. Like, I can hold it like a normal person. One with small hands, mind you, but otherwise I like to think I'm normal. And it just felt fine and sturdy. Like, it feels well built. But yeah, having these like continuous moments of being like, wow, this screen is big. It's definitely, I wasn't expecting that because I used it already. Like the difference of a demo environment and like actual real life use, the contextual differences of those, I thought was really interesting, which brings me to the Pro Controller, because this too kind of fell in the same bucket where like when anyone first tries the Joy-Con 2s, like the improvements are immediate, or the differences are like immediately apparent, right? Like the bigger sticks, the better SL and SR buttons, the things just feel bigger. With the Pro Controller, with the 2, I initially thought it was nice when I demoed it, but it didn't feel hugely different. Like it was comfy, but not like a notable change in the way that like the Joy-Cons felt. So like I wasn't really planning to get one until Rachel offered it to me as that birthday gift. And who am I to say no to a birthday gift? But yet, much to my surprise, I love the thing. Like now that I'm using it like every day, it's like the sticks are more elevated and feel like they're kind of just like floating. Like there's no rim that they click against. They're like basically completely free movement and silent. The grips themselves are completely seamless, which makes for a very comfortable hold. Another fun fact from Welcome Tour, they made it seamless so your sweat doesn't get trapped in there. So that's fun. But separately, in a Ask the Developer that Nintendo did with the Switch 2 team, the seamlessness and the shape of those grips on the Pro Controller, and I think on the charging grip as well, but I might be wrong about this. At least with the Pro Controller, it's actually a throwback to the GameCube controller as well. Same shape, same seamlessness, which is kind of an interesting parallel with, you know, Switch 2 being the only console that can run GameCube games through Switch Online. So I thought that was kind of fun. And then you already mentioned like the C button inclusion. We'll get to that GameChat stuff later. But yeah, I'm very much into the Pro Controller 2 in a way I wasn't expecting to be. I'm very much impressed repeatedly by the size of the Switch 2 in a way I wasn't expecting to be. Like I thought I was kind of over the hump of this is what to expect, and I was very pleasantly surprised and continually pleasantly surprised by how, like, I keep going, wow, this is cool. Like I really wasn't expecting that. And it helped kind of give that whole like this is a new thing, a new console feel a little, you know. But what a difference context makes between like a demo event where it's a limited experience and like replacing your day-to-day habits with the newer thing. It's like when you get a new phone and it's bigger or whatever. Like I really wasn't expecting that. So
Yeah, but I guess kind of like a new phone, and I'm talking like a new, going from like a model that does a redesign, but at the end of the day it's their phone. This is definitely what it feels like more so than going from like a flip phone to a smartphone.
For sure. And like
it's perfectly fine.
Well, and the thing is, like some phones, sometimes you have kind of unexpected weaker points. And this is another example of the context thing, maybe, is like battery life, right? I think when you're, you know, when I was demoing a console or you know, mainly when I was demoing the console or maybe playing it in like, or you're mainly playing it in TV mode for the most part, like it's not a big deal what the battery is, right? But when you're on a 2.5-hour flight to Seattle and your Mario Kart session leaves you with 20% left on your battery when you're done with the flight, and you're like, oh, what if this was a 3 or 4 hour flight? You know, like then it's kind of a concern. I mean, there are a few ways to look at this. It's kind of like, you know, when you get a new phone and suddenly the battery life's a little worse, and you're just like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Were you gonna say something? Sorry.
Oh, no, I guess that made me realize that I really hope whatever flight I take to Japan has outlets. They usually do.
Well, and that's the thing. Is like there are a few ways to look at this.
But
like
if you're playing near Omega Ultra battery pack just in case.
Oh, well, there you go, too. But yeah, there are a few ways to look at this, because if you're playing near an outlet or you have a big battery pack, and many planes do have outlets now, like plug and play, no problem. The Switch 2 in handheld mode even charges with the Switch 1 charger, as I can confirm. So you're fine. It's just charging a little slower. I think another thing to take in consideration battery life is that there's also the fact that this console is surprisingly impressive in power, like maybe more than I personally expected. I mean, we see it, obviously, how Mario Kart runs with all like its particle effects and HDR and what have you, how some ports look like when they showed Switch 2 editions of Zelda, but it's also like the way it runs, like how good and actually smoother some Switch 1 games run on it when they're played on Switch 2. Like it's a neat parlor trick of sorts, thanks to, well, actually Kevin was the one telling me this in a text, but I guess some games have unlocked frame rates from the start, so when they're put on more powerful hardware, they're just running better. So there's been all these interesting videos online of like Saints Row and Ninja Gaiden and all these like random Switch games that are running at like a full 60 now. And, you know, obviously then you get the even better experiences with the patched games like Mario Odyssey or like the Switch 2 editions like Zelda, like I was saying. But, you know, having that power in there, that is, I guess, the trade-off of the battery. And it's also perhaps worth noting that the original Switch, like the OG Switch, also had battery life as low as like 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on how you configured it and what you played. It wasn't really until the subtle revision they did, and then the light, and then the OLED, when the battery got notably better. So we're not like an entirely new terrain here, and I'm sure that's why Nintendo was comfortable shipping it with a battery like this. But again, like context, right? Like if you came from anything but the OG Switch, this does kind of feel like a battery downgrade, not a return to how you played the early Switch days. Like if you need to play longer than a couple hours not near a plug, this kind of inhibits that, and you actually kind of think about like the what and the where of playing. The way you're like, oh well, I guess I'll bring my battery pack, or I hope the plane is like that wasn't a consideration by the time the later generation or the later parts of the original Switch generation were available. Like it's all kind of reminiscent of like range anxiety people have with electric cars. Like, oh well, I need to go here to get there so I could get there in time. It's just one of those things that like when a console with the thesis statement of everything you love about your Switch but better comes out, and then the battery is at best equal to the worst Switch battery from way back in like 2017, 2018, it's not a deal breaker. It's not like, the end of the world, but it is kind of a little thing where you're like, huh, I guess. Like, I'm sure they'll fix it with an upgraded OLED Switch 2 at some point. I'm sure they'll do a battery revision at some point. I'm sure software optimizations can tweak it. Apparently, there's one you can do yourself, actually. I guess the battery life indicator is simply reporting incorrect numbers sometimes. And if you boot in and out of recovery mode, and there's instructions on Nintendo's website to do this, you can get a more accurate battery percentage, which is sometimes better or sometimes the same. But, this is one of the few moves, the battery, where it did feel like we went a little backwards from Switch 1 to Switch 2. And I was kind of not taken aback, but I was just kind of like, oh, I have to like think about it. Like when we did GameChat a couple of times. We did a really fun one with like 5 people. We played for, I don't know, 2 hours. And I had to, like every few races, kind of just glance at the battery because I was playing in handheld and just be like, do I need to plug this in? Like, is this a concern? I never had to do that with the Switch 1 OLED. So, just one of those things to think about. That I was kind of a little surprised happened, but it doesn't, again, you just have to assess as you go. It's not the end of the world. There's another thing that I'm sure some will argue isn't as good as some of the latter stuff. The screen. Frankly, I still think it looks fantastic head on, but I know people are like, it's not an OLED. I mean, how do you feel about the screen?
I don't know. It's great. Perfectly fine.
Right?
I mean, maybe because I'm not as much of a, and I'll just throw this in there, like audio file, frame file. I am perfectly fine with 30 frames per second on a lot of things. Like, I know Kevin has said a few times that, like, below a certain frame rate, like, it's just like a literal deal breaker. Maybe it depends on the game, but, if it's consistent, all I care about is the consistency. That's it. I've enjoyed plenty of games in 30 frames per second. Anything above that, sure, that's just nice. That's just what it is. Maybe I think Nintendo for better or worse, like, keeping my standards low. Well, not even low, just like, like, it really just depends on how fun it is to play the game despite any of the hardware limitations. Like, I feel like people that eventually build PCs almost end up getting a warped perception of what is really important. And, this is all 100% just an opinion because
I feel like this is a good episode that Kevin's not here for.
I know. Yeah, hopefully he doesn't listen to this, but, maybe this is a discussion for another time. But, yeah, because, I know there's a whole marker where you can just like build your PC to be as strong as possible, never have to deal with any of these limitations. And yeah, I do appreciate that that developers on PC can basically build without any limitations, but you don't need that to make amazing games. And I feel like Nintendo has proven that time and time again. And sure, you can argue they can make better stuff with more power, but you don't need it. Like,
and there is stuff that like it helps, like Hyrule Warriors. One of them chugged and now doesn't. Scarlet and Violet. There's examples, but
there are definitely some games that definitely could have benefited, or they were made with before their time, we'll say. But
on older hardware that just but like. And that's kind of what I feel like the trade-off with Switch 2 is. It's like, okay, well, you didn't like that the games chugged, but you had good battery life. Well, are you willing to give up some battery life so the games don't chug? And obviously, the unanimous answer based on the sales and everything is yes, I am, and I'm willing to make that
and it feels like that
as well.
Has to. And I feel like that depends a lot on the developer as well and their experience with that kind of stuff. Like, it definitely seems like, Nintendo, you know, we'll call like Nintendo proper, clearly knows what they're doing with their own console, of course. Like, you
Oh
look
yeah,
at,
yeah.
like, like Odyssey, like, yeah, even Breath of the Wild and Tears, like, have some areas where they apparently check. Like, we'll use Breath of the Wild because that's the only one I've played between the two. Like, I felt like I never had any performance issues with that game, and if they did, they were so minor, I didn't even notice or couldn't even recall them. But but there are people out there that say like that there were significant ones, sure. But or even like Pikmin 4, like that game I felt runs amazingly, looks amazing, blah blah blah. Pokemon Company slash Game Freak, you know, they definitely are designing their games a certain way that you could tell they're slowly learning how to better optimize their games for the console. We'll see how they do in the next one, but
Well,
you
did
can
you
kind of see a
see
difference. But
at Summer Game Fest that Game Freak has a game coming to Xbox called Beast of Reincarnation that looks frame rate maybe, but it looks amazing graphically. Like, where's that? like clearly they're a little more advanced than they let on. Like the art style difference. I realize some of it's an art style, but it's like night and day in terms of the amount of detail and the. I don't know. I was like, wow, okay, that's
do
Game
you
Freak.
remember the last
Okay.
game they released? That was on everything but a Nintendo platform.
The elephant one.
Yeah, I think it was like Kembo or Tembo,
Yeah,
the
Tembo,
badass
Tembo.
telephone or
And it,
something.
yeah, yeah, and they used the word badass. Another thing they never do in Pokemon. But yeah, no, Beast of Reincarnation like look like modern graphics, not like the kind of whatever they do with Pokemon. And don't get me wrong, I like the Pokemon games, but like the comparison, I was just like, wow, that's noticeably different art style. But yeah, no, I'm with you on like that frame rate and stuff doesn't matter that much to me. I think as long as the thing runs smooth, it's fine. I don't know, it's huge frame rate differences. Like I had a little trouble perceiving in Welcome
Yeah,
Tour. One of the tech demos is actually like identify the frame rate difference, which is super on Nintendo. I'll talk about that later. But so it's like a ball would go across the screen, two balls, and you had to like say which was at like what was the frame rate, and it was like 30 to 120, and I could tell like 30 versus 60. I had a lot of trouble going 60 to 120, to be honest. It was basically a 50-50 chance because there was two options. So yeah, and I'm with you on that. But I do think like, and I don't know how much this is due to like Digital Foundry's existence, but I do think as sites like Digital Foundry, who do a great service of explaining all the tech side of things, they've armed people with a vocabulary about like tech specs and stuff that they're probably right. Some stuff doesn't run as smooth as others, but does it matter for your gameplay experience versus just thinking, well, I need it to be smoother? You know what I mean?
yeah. There's a difference
So
between it not hitting it or hitting those marks like all the time versus to the point, because it's really where it's inconsistent that it actually like hinders the gameplay experience. That's where it's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
And
totally.
and I guess I feel like, yeah, like I can. There are games that I'm sure I can feel and be like, oh, this runs terribly, blah blah blah. But I don't think I would ever preemptively dismiss any game before I actually play it. I think that's
I
a
will say where it's notable, Mario Kart. When you go from playing normally one player, two player, 2D, four player, 30 frames, whether it's this was with 8 for me, but I'm sure it's true with World as well. I
it
did
is.
go, huh, this does feel a little different.
Yeah, and you do
Yeah,
notice it, but literally like
yeah.
halfway through that first race after we
You
make that
adjust.
shift,
Yeah,
like I don't notice it anymore. Like it's fine.
yeah. But yeah, so I guess on the tech spec side, so yeah, the frame rate stuff doesn't matter. Screen didn't matter to you. I think it looks fantastic too. I will say, as a Switch OLED owner, if I put them side by side, you can spot a little difference. I know this was a question Kevin had from the hands-on event, and I wasn't able to really answer it. Everyone else has a Switch OLED has done this by now, but I'm going to put it on the record. You can spot a little difference. It was noticeable, like, as soon as I was setting up the system transfer menus. Like, literally, that's all it took for me to see it. Like, the OLED looks like it's printed right on the Switch, like, move at any angle, and it's just there with the same viewing angle. Like, it looks identical. LCD of the Switch 2, like it has some light coming in from the side, so the viewing angles are affected. But then on the flip side, it has HDR, which gives it some of the vibrance back in the direction of the OLED. And honestly, compared to like a regular Switch LCD, the new one's great. It's gorgeous. Like even compared to an OLED, I feel like you really need to consciously, to your point about like do the frames actually matter? Like with something even with the screen, I feel like I need to like consciously decide to look at how deep the blacks are or are not on a given, are those tire shadows really as dark as they can be in Mario Kart World? Like I have to stop and think about it, or I have to hold it from these angles I'm never going to play from just to justify that, yes, it is inferior to an OLED. So like day-to-day gaming wise, I actually do find the screen to be great, but I know that has been a talking point online. But well, it's not OLED. And of course, when the OLED one comes out, and of course when I upgrade to it, I'm of course gonna be like, wow, this is noticeably better. But it didn't feel like a downgrade to go to the LCD. I still found it very vibrant and colorful and nice. So that's just one opinion, but that's the last piece of the hardware we haven't touched on, so I figured I'd throw out my thoughts on that as well. Yeah, should we jump over to like the operating system, the software, the features, that sort of thing?
Damn. Yep.
Damn, that's your answer?
Well, we're like, I didn't think we would have that much to say about just the hardware.
Oh yeah, dude, this is gonna be a long one, I feel like. And I mean,
oh my god, we're already at the 50-minute mark.
Yeah, dude, it's a new console. This is what happens. But no, I was gonna say, and here's the thing. I don't. When I say let's talk about the OS, I don't even mean obvious nice stuff like faster loading of the eShop or like that Switch Online app website thingy. Yeah, but like whatever that, like it's smoother, things run faster now. Like I don't mean that. I'm talking about, and this is why this episode's so long. I'm talking about the little quality of life things that seem small on paper, but much like kind of the screen size thing, I keep finding myself reappreciating every time I use them. Like, I don't know if you do this because you mostly play on TV mode, but things like how you want to connect your Bluetooth headphones. It used to be buried in the system settings. Now it's right on the home button quick menu once you sync for the first time. The headphones are just there. Same goes with the option for customizing the GLGR buttons on the Pro Controller for anyone who wants to do that, just there on the menu. Like, it's just great. Or another one, the revised gallery app. Like, you can sort who took the screenshot of your different profiles on your Switch, which game it came from. You can automatically upload them into the cloud and have quick access in the redesigned and very nice Switch Online phone app. Like, these are small things, but they just make the whole Switch OS feel like a more complete, well thought out package. Not like it wasn't before, it just feels more so now. And in tandem with that, I know people don't like how minimal or like lacking in personality the Switch interface is in general. But within that minimalism, I do appreciate the little flourishes Nintendo did to make Switch 2 feel different from Switch 1. Like, this is the type of stuff where I'm like, oh, I want to feel like I have something new. Every sound effect has been swapped out for a new one. The little notification box in the corner has like a subtle redesign. The virtual game card menu is actually a pretty cool interface for managing all my downloaded games. The companion Switch Online app that I mentioned before has a new menu animations that, it's a lot of like little tiny things, but put together, it just, I don't know, what's the expression? A rising tide lifts all boats or whatever. Just like a bunch of little things all together are like elevating for me the Switch 2 experience into what feels like a bigger change than it probably actually is. And I was just like, it was nice. I was happy with it. I mean, what about you, Angel? Are you liking the software?
I mean,
or are you a little bummed it's so similar?
I wouldn't say I'm bummed it's so similar. I think it's just like the software-wise, it's kept the status quo.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you do view, correct me if I'm wrong, your Switch 2 to you is more of an extension of your Switch 1, while for me, I was kind of seeking out something bolder.
So for that matter, like, sure, like, yeah, I did have to mess with some of the HDR settings, but nothing really felt different enough that it was like, oh, I can't believe this has this. Because even the stuff that is different, the Switch cartridge, digital cartridge thing, like that's also on
virtual
the first
game
Switch.
Cards.
Yeah, virtual game card. Yeah, that's also on Switch 1. So I've already been dealing with that.
Oh, right, because you have two Switch 1s. Because, yeah, I knew it was there. It was in the update in late April. I just never touched it. So for Switch 2, it did feel kind of new.
So for the most part, like, I didn't really notice any difference. Like, at most, and I don't know if this is like a Switch 2 thing. I guess it has to be a Switch 2 thing. Or I guess it could also be an update. But I did play Killer Queen Black recently-ish. And there was something with the game, which I feel was like maybe either a limitation with the Switch 1 or the game itself, but if you wanted to use a Pro Controller basically took the spot of, like, essentially you could control up to 4 Pro Controllers max, or you could have 8 Joy-Cons. because the Pro Controller counted as 2 Joy-Cons. So if you wanted to play Killer Queen Black with the maximum amount of people, which is 8 off of one console on one TV, you would need to use 8 Joy-Cons. But suddenly, we were able to play Killer Queen Black with, we were 6 people, but with 4 Pro Controllers and just 1 split Joy-Con, which definitely would not have been possible in Switch 1.
Yeah, that's one of those like little just tiny spec boosts.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if just like it being able to handle that many Pro Controllers, because Smash Brothers always was able to do it. So I don't know if maybe there was some like update that Killer Queen Black just like kind of threw under the curtain a little bit, just because it could now, or because now they could handle it. But that was really nice because that game is definitely better with normal controls. But
definitely, and I also. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, but otherwise, same simple UI. Wish we had themes, wish we had folders, but it's fine. It gets the job done. Yeah, I do like uploading pictures and videos directly from there to the phone app. That is convenient, and I like it a lot. And I guess friending people through the app, like those kind of things. It's like, yeah, this makes sense for this to be on an app. This is actually beneficial and convenient, not the whole like whatever they're trying to force it on Smash Brothers or like I don't know, or Splatoon. Well, some of the things on Splatoon were neat. Like, yeah, you can order clothes, I guess, or see the map rotation, but they just felt like, please use the Switch app, or making you use it for like the
voice chat.
Yeah. And well, I guess
was there anything else you were going to say about that? Segue. Well, I was going to say real quick, another way I made the Switch 2 experience feel more different for me. You mentioned no themes. Pro tip for anyone out there who like wants to make it feel newer. I've always used light mode on my Switch 1. First thing I did on the Switch 2, dark mode. Not only is the console that color, like including the Joy-Con, so it kind of feels more native, but also it feels like a big change. So even though it's not a big change, it's a way to like kind of like make the experience feel new. And similarly, I also I did a system transfer, and then I deleted all the game icons. So the save data is there. And if I want to re-download stuff, I can. But I basically gave myself a clean slate with my save data all there. So then I could just download things as I want. And it kind of did feel like a fresh start, even though it was still a legacy continuation. So it took a little time to go through and do them. There's actually a menu inside the settings to mass delete things but keep the save data. I would recommend that versus going icon by icon, but it was kind of, I did manage to split the difference in my concern last episode. Like, do I stay? Do I, with what I had, do I start fresh? And I did find the in-between. So that also helped create a new experience. But
I always had my console in dark mode. So
go to light mode.
I rarely have anything
see the light.
I rarely have anything in dark mode. I think the Switch UI is the only thing I have in dark mode.
I have my phone in dark mode, which I love. But
yeah, all my browsers and everything else is usually. I mean, I have it set to like automatic on my phone. It just kind of automatically switches at some point during the day. But yeah,
we should.
That's all well and good. But GameChat though,
we should talk about the biggest operating system edition.
Yeah, I will say this is a lot cooler than I feel like everyone thought it was going to be, including myself.
Same.
Like, this is a million times better than using the phone app. Honestly, I personally find this a lot better and more convenient than using Discord. Discord is great if you're going to play something on your PC, of course. Or maybe if I had my... I don't know. This just makes more sense. Like, because for one thing, it is smart enough to be its own separate thing. So there were situations where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna exit to the main menu and break this lobby just so that I could have my brother join the same online lobby. But that doesn't interrupt the voice chat because that's its own separate app. Like, we could swap games and still be in the voice chat. And it's just all native on the Switch, and it's super easy, and we don't have to like explain to other people or be like, oh, do you have a Discord if you're not friends? Like, you're already friends on the Switch if you're already playing together. And more often than not, well, maybe right now it's not the case, but most people will have set up the voice chat. And it just
there's no real setup. That's the thing. You just plug in a phone number for whatever reason, and you pick which of your friends you want to allow to game chat with you, and that's it. Then it's just there.
Yeah,
it's
there are
great.
A few minor caveats, but they're more like... And, you could work around them. Like, for example, It can't. Yeah, I kind of wish you can automatically kick and add people from a voice chat if you were the one that created it. Currently, that is not possible. So an alternative is if these people, like I said before, this is more of an issue right now and will be less of an issue later. But in the future, if I just want to have like, if I know I'm going to be playing games, for the evening, and I just want to create, and I know some people may jump online at some point, I could just preemptively send invites to all the people that I would like to play with if they happen to jump on, and just send them a preemptive invite. And if they happen to jump on their Switch, they'll see the invite. They could join the lobby, the voice chat lobby, come in and leave as they please, and that's great. Like that. That's
Yeah,
just
and
this is
it
one way to
also
work around
integrates with
having
the
to add
app,
people
so
later.
they get push notifications, so they know, oh hey, if I have some free time, I should go on. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they miss the notification, there's like a list of like active chats that they've been invited to,
Yep.
which that also works perfectly fine. The other thing, which is also I would say pretty impressive, is it felt like we actually had quite the gamut of how people were using the voice chat, but I was using it in this most raw state, which is literally from the TV, switch below the TV, across the room. And I guess that was my mic. And according to the people I was playing with, I sounded just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else sounded just fine to me coming from my TV. Sure, I don't get to listen to the beautiful music of Mario Kart World because, you're basically just in conversation the whole time. But depending on the game, you're usually in a voice chat because you don't really care about the music or the sound in the game. And that's perfectly fine. Like, it actually works really, really well and picks up voices really, really well.
And
And
isolates sound really well.
yeah, like, I think Jason was asking us, like, are you sure we can't hear this? Are we sure we can't heir that? Are you sure you can't
Mm-hmm.
hear
Yeah, I
this,
was
like,
sitting
person
next to
getting
an air
murdered?
conditioner.
And
Yeah, because I need to know if you guys can be my alibi. But
we
yeah,
couldn't.
I was sitting next to an air conditioner and it was running the whole time, and you guys didn't hear it at all.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think the fact that like you don't have to literally do anything and it just works from
that's what's
across
so
the TV with
great.
minimal. Like I didn't have to put on headphones. I didn't have to,
Mm-hmm.
do
Mm-hmm.
anything. Like it just worked. Which, damn, that is really cool. Like I didn't have to
That's
get
what
a mic or anything. It was great.
that's what I love about it. Like, I know outside Nintendo's bubble, people have had voice chat forever, right? Like in Discord with screen sharing and streaming and all that good stuff. But like the ease of access to the type of experience that GameChat now creates for online play on Switch 2 with no setup. Like, there's something about how it's baked in, how it's native, like you were saying, at the system level, how it has its own designated C button to like quick access stuff, how it uses the microphone like you're describing. And I think it's using some variant of NVIDIA's RTX voice to do the isolation tech. But then how it like also can overlay on top of not just what game you're in, but the entire Switch 2 experience, like just its system level, not game level. Like it just feels, I don't want to say next gen because there's variants of this that exist, but like it does feel kind of like this is the Switch 2, like the new thing, like the next gen Nintendo experience you couldn't have on Nintendo platform before, like actually something new, right? Like, I mean, Switch 1 couldn't do this because it would need to allocate some of its hardware resources to make it happen. But the fact that like Switch 2 was built with this in mind and has it work as seamlessly as it does, like I do now, I always gave Nintendo the benefit of the doubt, but I do now really get why Nintendo put it at the forefront of the marketing. And I love it as a feature. It's so great. Like
Oh yeah.
it's, yeah. I mean, for anyone who hasn't fiddled with it yet, or who hasn't gotten a Switch 2 yet, quick rundown. We should probably just explain kind of the ins and outs. So you boot up GameChat, like you were saying, you can invite friends preemptively and they can show up whenever. You can have up to 12 people voice chatting all at once, and 4 of you can share your screen like a little Zoom call or a Google Meet. And with a tap of the C button, if you're using a Switch 2 controller, or by hitting home and then GameChat if you're using a Switch 1 controller, you're able to, on the fly, access menus for turning off or on the camera, for muting yourself, for screen sharing, enlarging or shrinking the screens of others, including essentially going full screen on one player of your choosing if you really want to see what they're up to. And like on the surface, everything I'm saying doesn't sound all that different from like a Zoom meeting, right? Or like voice chatting with your friends on a group call in the Switch 1 days. But man, like there's just something special about how it recreates the feeling of like being together in the same room playing video games, even though it's like
Yeah,
through the internet.
more
It's
so
so
from the couch. I
cool.
definitely did get like couch co-op vibes, even though we both of us were
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
handheld and whatnot.
And
Just
I
like hearing your friends rage. Like literally, they're about to win first place. I get them with the banana, and then they're like, "I hate this game. I literally want to stop playing." Like, like that's priceless. For everything else, there's
yeah, and I
Mastercard,
think
but yeah,
yeah, exactly. And I think it's cool because like it doesn't just recreate like yeah, recreate like there's two ways it recreates kind of that local experience. Like the first is what you're describing, which is, you know, the feeling of local multiplayer. Like you could essentially turn any game into a split screen experience. Any game that runs on Switch 2, even Switch 1 games, like seeing
yeah, because you don't
exactly
have to
what
be
other
playing the
folks are
same
up.
thing.
Exactly. You could just be hanging out and being able to see what other folks are up to if you want to be one of those people who, you know, gasp screen peek. Like you can do that again now, like you could in the N64 days. But if you want to go like a step further and plug in a camera, you're not only hearing the reactions, you can also see people react to what's happening as if they're next to you. And with Mario Kart World, you can actually have the camera feed appear above your cart, sort of like the photos of Mario Kart Arcade GP. But it's a live video where you could watch their reaction real time, and it follows them around as you're driving, like it's hovering above them. And Mario Party Jamboree TV is going to do a similar thing, where you can see reactions when your star is stolen, when you're the mini game winner, when you get a star, you see everyone else's reactions. Like that's somewhat game chat built into games, but even without that, you can still see those reactions along the bottom in like the little Zoom meeting format, and it's really cool. And what's super neat, and another example of like the small flourishes of the Switch 2 interface, is how game chat also spatially maps the direction of each participant's voice to their placement of your screen share. This is something that I actually didn't even notice initially until one of our friends pointed out when we were doing a group game chat session together. But basically, if I'm the leftmost screen share, it'll sound like I'm coming from your left side when you're listening. Middle's more centered, and the right is on the right side, obviously. But so with headphones, how it works is like it's stereo sound, right? But if you're playing in handheld with the built-in speakers, it does this thing using the system's quote-unquote virtual surround sound, where it really does sound like it's not just like your left speaker, your right speaker. It the way it bridges all four people across it is pretty cool, and it does again capture the feeling of sitting with your friends all around you playing split-screen multiplayer. Like your friend to the left said something funny, you look to your left to see what their reaction is, just where their little video feed would be. Like it's really a neat feature. And I think what then like pleasantly surprised me even more is how seamlessly game chat goes beyond obvious multiplayer. Like we were talking about local multiplayer, but even if you're doing your own thing in your own game, super cool to be able to quickly go, hey, look at this to a friend and have them watch in real time. It's like when you're a kid at a sleepover and you tell someone to glance at your Game Boy screen real quick, you know? Like it's a really cool way to recapture that moment like in the modern era. And I initially experienced this when a friend and I were parallel free roaming in Mario Kart World. We were each doing our own thing, but quite frequently we just shout, "Whoa, this is cool! Check this out!" Like he like got in a UFO at one point. He's like, "Oh my god, what is going on?" I was like looking at his screen, like, "Whoa!" And I didn't have to like do anything. I just looked at his screen. You know what I mean? Or like at one point, you know, we were asking each other's advice on how to reach like a peach medallion or whatever. And the other person's screen was just right there. Or you can like hit the C button and there's instantly a larger view on the overlay menu. Or go even further and do the full screen thing I was saying. But like the point is it's all just like right there at the ready, baked in. And it just works really well. I mean, another example was when you, Angel, were trying to teach me the best way to wall ride in Mario Kart to get like a question block panel. And the way you could just like see and coach in real time without us needing to do anything besides use the system as it's designed, like use a
Yeah,
chat lobby as it's designed.
it was
Like that
actually
was
because
super
my
cool.
brother was also coaching as well, and he was basically
Yeah.
saying how like, oh no, you're still going perpendicular to the wall. You want to go a little
Yeah.
more parallel, and then we would see you like back up and see your angles position, and yeah, it was nice to do it so
It's
quick,
really
so
cool.
intuitively, and so natively, which with
Yeah.
basic setup.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess it's more for awareness, but of course you can't. Like we had maybe 6 people in one chat at one point, and
Hmm.
only 4 of the streams were live. I guess it's like the first 4 people to
Hmm.
turn a stream on that have their streams on.
By default,
And
but then you could turn yours off and someone could turn theirs on. Yeah.
yeah, so I guess it's more of like you're gonna just have to coordinate who you want to
Yeah,
see.
but I mean, but honestly, like the ease of access, the ability to easily turn on off the screen, the ability to
Well,
provide these
not
sort of
super
streaming
easily. Well,
moments.
that's where the non-switch two controller
Oh, well,
kind of loses because I have to press the home
yeah,
button, then I have to go to the C thing
yeah.
because if that still requires some navigation of the thumbstick, then I have to go to the other setting.
Right. You
versus
need to get that C button, my friend.
yeah, it's a little annoying.
I didn't think it'd be as much of a game changer, but yeah, it's great.
But I am someone that will rarely screen peek anyway, and I really, really dislike having like not using the whole real estate of my TV for the game. So I typically just had my game on full screen. I maybe only like
and even then, you
screen
still get all the
peeked.
voice chat benefits.
Yeah, and you know, like you see on the bottom, or I guess we're actually you pick wherever you want the tags of people to appear that are currently talking. And you know that's convenient. Like I'll occasionally turn it on if I need to, if someone wants to show me something. But you know, you could play it however you want. That's the whole point of it. That if you don't want to see what they're up to and just have the whole TV as you normally do, then you can do that and still enjoy the chat.
Yeah. And I will I'm gonna preface this next thing real quick. I'm a full game chat convert. Like the ease of access, the ability to provide like streaming moments to the mainstream in this like personal way. Like I'm so into it. I think I posted this sometime on my socials too, but I'm so into it. I bought the surprise Switch 2 edition of No Man's Sky that they announced like the day before launch. It was on sale for like only $23. It's the full game, multiplayer, all the worlds, all the DLC, everything, 4K. I was gonna buy it, but my friend's like, "Oh, I bought it." The friend I did the Mario Kart World Parallel roaming with. I'm like, "Oh, we should buy it and do game chat. Like we should just explore. Like we can do the multiplayer, but if we branch off from each other, we can still see what we're doing and see cool moments." So like I literally bought a whole nother game for my Switch 2 specifically to use game chat with it, which is crazy that I'm at that point already. Like I really love game chat, but I will say, in the same way that the Switch 2 is not the cream of the crop when it comes to graphics and power that's available on the market, the same can be said for some of game chat's implementation. And I don't want to make it sound like it's amazing. But like, if you want top of the line graphics, like PS5 Pro is sitting like right there, right? If you still want great looking games with flexibility of portability, well then, hey, the Switch 2 is your system. I would say game chat kind of falls in that same worldview. Like the microphone quality is shockingly good for what it is, like we were saying. The voice isolation is shockingly good for what it is. Actually, Welcome Tour taught me a fun fact. I didn't say this when we were talking about the microphone. They did not just standard RTX voice or some variant of it. They customized it. So reactions to gaming moments, clapping, for example, does get pushed through, even though RTX voice would normally isolate it out. Like Nintendo worked with NVIDIA to I don't know if it's exactly RTX voice, but whatever they're using, they specifically left certain reactionary sounds in, which is kind of neat. But and that's super fancy, probably top tier. There's a really slick speech to text transcribing feature that can in real time write out what people are saying in like a chat box on the side. No swear word filters either. You could go crazy. Again, top tier, but compromise. The video side of things is not top tier. It's good enough. It's fine. But as folks probably know, the games run at 10 or 15 frames per second in the shared screen footage. And truthfully, like I said, it's fine. It's totally fine. You're not watching. It's not designed to be watching full play sessions down there, most likely. You're using it for quick glances, quick advice, little moments where seeing or peeking to know where someone may be so you can find them or not find them, whatever you're trying to do. So really, if you don't need it, you're getting a better trade-off to ensure the feature can exist on Switch 2 in the first place by having it run at this slower frame rate. But it is worth pointing out, and a lot of people notice in the commercials and stuff, it is running at a lower frame rate. It's kind of like animated GIF status, a little faster maybe. So just something to be wary or mindful of as you come in. Another thing to be aware of, I was talking about the optional camera functionality. So I actually bought the Switch 2 camera accessory, and first of all, it's a pretty nice piece.
I did not, and unfortunately, I do not have anything on that yet. I will try a regular webcam eventually, just to see how that works.
That's the beauty of it, is all USB, almost all USB-C webcams seem to work with the Nintendo didn't put any limitations. You can even plug an iPhone in with the right cord. But me being the, one, I bought on launch night, so I didn't know, and two, I'm a Nintendo nerd. So of course I got the official one, and it is nice. Don't get it wrong. The stand has a Switch 2 glossy logo on it, and there's a clip on the back of the stand to let you make the cord flush against the stand, so it looks very minimalist. And the camera unit itself has a little privacy shutter, so you can just twist the lens. And the frame of the lens, and it'll physically block the lens from being able to see anything. So you can leave it in your living room if you want. You just plug in Switch 2, it just works. You don't have to configure anything. Kind of like Game Chat just works. But the video quality in Game Chat, not the best. This is probably true of all webcams. I think it's the software. It allows you to choose to show your background, hide your background, do a little circular view of just your face, but it doesn't seem to have any automated adjustments if you don't have like good lighting in your room. So I ended up looking rather shadowy on top of my gameplay. And while it can erase the background decently enough, like zooming in to show less of your body, especially if you're further away from the TV, makes some jaggedness appear rather quickly. In fact, zooming in at all, which is nice that you can do from inside the game chat menus, first of all, but zooming in at all, it does expose some kind of low-res gnarliness. Even though the camera, or at least the one I bought, is in fact full HD, like it's the feed they're pumping out into game chat is not the prettiest, but it gets the job done for recreating the moment of being in the room together. And maybe some future firmware update will optimize it a bit. Maybe the camera itself is just the first pass and better versions will come, or, maybe other more high quality cameras maybe you could plug in a 4K camera and it works better. I don't know. I'm also so far the only person I know who's done game chat with a camera plugged in. So it was kind of a one-way experience. So I'm just seeing my own feed. Maybe other people look better. And truthfully, as just running through a list of reasons this maybe isn't so bad, I need to put it through paces more. Like I need to try, one of the things it can do is I can separate people's faces and voices so you can have multiple people on one camera. So I got to try that. Gotta wait for more games to use it with, like Jamboree TV next month. But I do see the potential, like janky as video may be. And that plus like what Game Chat does very well, everything we were gushing about, I am intrigued and excited for like online Mario Party, whatever they do with it in the future. And more importantly, nothing about the video, because you don't even need the video, has held me back from loving Game Chat as a whole. I just feel like if we're talking Game Chat and we're gushing about Game Chat, we should at least throw in, well, the video could be better, So, but yeah, Game Chat is, I think this is the killer Switch 2 feature to me. Like the cool new thing that you gotta try. Like it's I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it will eventually. I mean, I got to do it with the Mario Party.
Yeah. But yeah, plug something in. We could do remote Mario parties sometime. Once it's out next month.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, you got a month. But speaking of games, like we've talked about the hardware that lets you play the games. We've talked about the chat system for when you play the games. Should we talk about some of the actual games? Crazy idea.
Not as well.
Okay. Do you want to do Do you want me to do Welcome Tour, or do you want to do Mario Kart first? Like, where do we want to start?
There's
only two games I have on the list.
I say Mario Kart World.
Okay. There's a lot of game to this game. If I can real quick make one tiny comment, then I'm going to pass it to you. I was trying to figure out how best to sort of sum up my thoughts on this game, like in my own head when I was trying to like get some notes down. And I think what I landed on is if this was Sesame Street and we had a word of the day, I feel like the word of the day for Mario Kart would be choices. Like for the most part, Mario Kart tends to stick to a status quo. But for World, the developers made some very big choices that shake up the game in good and bad ways. And then within that, made a bunch of smaller choices that kind of leave you like, now why'd you do that? Like, that's a weird choice. But like everything about the game boils down to just like a developer's choice at some point in a way that past Mario Karts haven't had to deal with, if that makes sense. So it's interesting to me. Like, it almost feels like the developers put their signature on this one in a more like, it's almost like more opinionated than past Mario Karts in a way. Like they had a vision and they stuck to it and they let other stuff fall to the wayside to get us that vision. And a lot of it's really cool, at least to me. But yeah, what do you think of it? You've been playing probably more than I have.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like, and kind of like to echo a little bit of what you said, like Mario Kart has always just been like what you can call like all reliable. Like every Mario Kart
totally
seems to have always some kind of new change here and there that, distinguishes it from the last one. But outside of, maybe unintended side effects of game mechanics like snaking, at least the way it was done on the DS, because, snaking has kind of been a thing since GameCube and N64. But I think DS is where it definitely hit a breaking point, and in many people's cases, it did with their thumb.
Yeah. And their D-pad.
Yeah. And I think it was a healthier choice to get rid of snaking that way. But it did lose kind of like a competitive edge with it. And it did feel a little like it always felt like it did lose something that it never quite recovered for a while. Like it just felt like it was missing the one thing that really separated those who were like really, really good and those also that were just really good. Because, the items can only do so much. And also, let me digress. Mario Kart, at least the way I play it now, is first and foremost a game that I play just for fun. But I do find it fun to get as good as I can in each of the tracks. but I no longer like really am like, oh, it's first place or go home, because having that kind of mentality in Mario Kart, I feel it's just gonna hurt you in the long run. And if you do find that really fun, good for you. But I feel like for the most part, most people can agree that yeah, it is kind of designed to be a party game in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And
Yeah.
if you
I
tried,
would agree.
and more so than Smash Brothers, because Smash Brothers gives you the option to turn off the items and reduce as much of the randomness as possible. This game, not so much. At least maybe later on. I mean, that's what time trials are for, where literally no one else can like affect you, and that's where like you can get really really competitive, which is perfectly awesome. It's awesome to watch the things. But when you're playing, especially now with like 24 other people, and you're just getting bombarded everywhere, you just want to sit back, have fun, and just hope you end up in the top half. But that being said, you know, Mario Kart's been more reliable, small incremental changes that may or may not be like what you remember them best for. If anything, like for me, going like from 7 to 8, yeah, 8 had anti-gravity mechanic that did do nothing for me. The only thing I remember Mario Kart 8 for was Bowser's Castle and N64 Rainbow Road remake and just a bunch of really awesome music. That's kind of like what stuck out to me, and it was enough. It was enough to make it my second most played Switch game, which says a lot about the game because, like I said, it's all reliable, incredibly solid. It's always amazing at a bare minimum, but even amazing starts to get a little stale after a while. And I wasn't really expecting Mario Kart World to like, really surprise me. I just expected it to be just a really great, solid game that's just going to replace Mario Kart 8. And
Right.
and it didn't really do that, which is kind of crazy because it actually really surprised me. It wasn't just old reliable. It felt like it took a lot of risks with some of the changes that it made. And like literally every Mario Kart, it isn't perfect. There are some, like Jason alluded to, questionable choices with some of the options that they allow, but a lot of those have workarounds. And at the end of the day, a lot of those things don't matter too much because, damn, this game, like, I haven't felt this level of euphoria for like a Nintendo game since, and I guess not to play this down, but this is actually like a big thing. Like when playing through N64 Rainbow Road in Mario Kart 8, like the remake, like that was like a big like, oh my god, this is like Nintendo magic through and through. Except this time I felt it throughout the majority of Mario Kart World, or even before that, like like playing a really good Rhythm Heaven. Like there's just so much, I guess, just like love and care that it just kind of oozes through this game.
Yeah.
That I felt like
I
it just
agree.
went over. Even the stuff that I was not excited about, I was not really looking forward to the open world stuff. If anything, I thought, I tried to go in with like little to no expectations, and I'll see when it gets there. But if someone has to ask me about what are my impressions on like what I heard, like, oh, I saw the trailer. They said you could drive anywhere. What do I think about that? Oh, it sounds like it's just going to be a lot of open terrain with not much going on. And while that is kind of true, to some extent, in some ways, it is still really, really fun. I did not expect to enjoy just driving around to be really fun. My brother and I, kind of working around the fact that there isn't a native way to do two-player open world. We just kind of figured it out
One of the
intuitively.
weirder choices. A good choice open world, a weird choice. Why is it not local multiplayer? Yes.
Yeah, but my brother and I like just almost right away like figured it out that like, oh yeah, just do two-player online lobby, and now we're just both doing two-player open world driving, and that worked perfectly fine. Sure, if we drive too far from each other, it will group us back together, but that, if anything, has its advantages and has been perfectly fine. I love that we can just drive or race each other to different tracks. We can practice tracks together at the same time for shortcuts and just use the rewind feature at the same time. Like, it seems like they could just make this its own separate mode, but it's pretty easy to set up. And if your friends join in, that's fine too. But man, I think But yeah, like I said, I can't think of a time, and a lot of it has to do with the music. Mario Kart music is a very, very important criteria for me. That and the Rainbow Roads. Rainbow Road from Mario Kart 8 was, I would just say, disappointing. It didn't really feel like a Rainbow Road. It was just a space station that had a rainbow colored road,
Yeah, it was
and
not the best.
and it doesn't, and it feels like I wasn't, no, and I definitely wasn't alone in that sentiment. Like Rainbow Road, N64 from Mario Kart 8 definitely saved it. Unfortunately, that track, as beautiful as it looked, as amazing as that remix was, that felt like it felt like it gave it the grand respect that the N64 version demanded and then some. But then it's only one lap, which, part of like the allure or the fun of Rainbow Road is how long and arduous these tracks can be. And then you get the one from Mario Kart 8, which just, on top of just having like an amazing score throughout, like it's four different sections, I think, or five of them. I think it's four. And then each section of the track feeling like they're all paying like homages to different parts of every Rainbow Road that came before
You
it.
mean Mario Kart World, right? You said 8.
Oh yeah, the one from Mario Kart World.
Yeah, because I was like, wait a sec, you're describing World.
I'm pretty sure I said World. But if I didn't, then yeah, World.
Rewind the tape.
Yeah,
But
like
yeah.
besides like having like an amazing score that I love from beginning to end, it seemingly having like, nods to like every Mario Kart course that came before it with like different track variations, even the space station, but at least managed to make
they
it.
even redeemed the space station. That I was so like surprised when I saw that. Yeah.
But I think like this time around, like it felt like more of a final track, like
Yeah.
no Rainbow Road ever felt before. Like before, it felt like, oh yeah, it's the Rainbow Road. It's the one that doesn't have the edges. Usually has one of the best, most memorable songs for it. But damn, like honestly, I'm even having trouble just kind of putting it into words. I was literally like speechless. Like
Well,
damn.
part of the reason so slight spoilers for those who haven't unlocked Rainbow Road Mario Kart World. The reason I think it felt so finite and so final and so like big finale is Rainbow Road, you unlock it, it's in the cup, you play the cup, that's it. It's just like, hey, you got a new cup, oh, and there's Rainbow Road in it, cool. This one did like a cinematic for unlocking the cup. And then the cup, because the game, the open world, and this whole idea of interconnected tracks was set up, you are driving from where your last cup was to where this new cup ends. And you go through multiple tracks that take you down there to basically Peach's Castle. And then for Rainbow Road itself, you hop on a track that takes you up to it. So you really aren't just like, oh, I got a new cup. You're like, oh, I unlocked this thing. I need to get there now. And every track you go on that gets you closer gets more ornate. And then suddenly you're airborne. And next thing you know, you see this disintegrating Rainbow Road like in the Mario movie that turns into basically an homage to every Rainbow Road that's ever happened. Just boom, 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 boom. And it's just like this constant buildup. And then the release of like one of the best Rainbow Roads at the end of that buildup created like almost like a narrative moment in a game that doesn't have a story. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah, like
that's partly why it felt so cool, I
yeah,
think.
like I watched a video that had like, one lap from every Rainbow Road, like back to back, like in order.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of crazy how much this new Rainbow Road just kind of takes a big dump on every single Rainbow Road that came before it. And just sheer like scope and imagination. Like there are a lot of parts of it that literally just look like someone grabbed someone's, I guess, imagination and put it on screen. Like it doesn't feel compromised in any way. And to
Yeah.
kind of like go back on that build up that you were talking about, like every in between or I guess like intermission track in this game
Mhm.
usually has like, long winding roads that, you go over some obstacles, they usually take a while and it comprises of like 2/3 of the whole, I guess, leg of the race. You spend 2/3 of it on this in between track, then you do a lap on the track you get to. For Rainbow
Mhm.
Road, it's completely different. It's literally just like Jason mentioned, you end at Peach's Castle from the previous race for Peach's like Raceway. I forgot what it was called.
I
And
think it's Stadium technically, but yeah,
oh
same
yeah, yeah,
difference.
Stadium, yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah.
Speedway. Speedway? Stadium. Yeah.
One of those two. It's a new Peach's Raceway or race, yeah. But
With some homages to Mario Kart 8. Some of the track turns upside down at one point, but anyway.
yeah, and in none of those cases did they ever need to something anti-gravity. They just do it.
No, they did not. No.
But for this like Rainbow Road one, it's definitely the shortest, and it's just like one straight line. But what you see in that straight line is just like a large lake. You're going down these stairs, and in the distance you see like a giant warp star that looks like something out of like Final Fantasy. Just start to get like more complicated. Like what I love about this one, and honestly, a lot of what they started to do in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Mario Kart 8 Wii U, I guess that's where it came from, is I guess the re-inclusion of like a more mystical magical element, like us to like, oh, like yeah, it makes sense that this Rainbow Road is floating in the air because you have these crazy magic stargates, star man things that are just like spinning around in circles doing something. It just adds to the fun and the mysticism. And this one just has so much of that like you said, like you could see like the space dust getting collected into like this like weird panel thing that seems to be what's holding it under a glass display or something to make it solid. And then you see the clouds, you see like where it dips down, you go into this lake, and then you see literally in the distance like the road winding up to what looks like heaven, because that's like another transition to like the aforementioned like space shuttle. And then like I wouldn't even spoil the rest because like it's like this big cool culminating treat that it's just long enough for you to really sit with it. And the music even has like a nice cool moment where it's like, okay, let's like bring it back down before we like get up into like the crescendo and like build you back up. It was definitely like an emotional moment. It was
I think
really,
we also
really
need
well
to
done.
We also need to acknowledge, first of all, you mentioned the giant like warp gate that gets you up there. Coincidence or not, it reminds me a lot of the Epic Universe entrance to Super Nintendo World that just opened in Florida. So between that and the Rainbow Road like disintegrating like the movie, they aren't just doing homages, assuming these are what they are, to the game Rainbow Roads. They're tying in the other Mario things that are big to the IP, which is just super cool. But the thing I was going to say is I think what also embodies Rainbow Road and everything you're describing really well are some of the strengths of Mario Kart World, which is the personality in the game, the graphics of the game, like this game, like the particle effects, the draw distance, the fact that you can, in the style of Breath of the Wild, if you see it, you can go there. Like you can, anywhere you look, there's no like pop in. It just constantly is like loading a new horizon line. The fact that you mentioned, they kind of explain everything with like an in-game logic. This is a living, breathing Mario Kart world. Like everything in the game. There are seaplanes that are just flying by. There are, explanations for how item blocks are placed. Like you see, like in some instances they're being dropped from planes. In other instances they're in a storm of like stardust by like Rosalina's track. Like it's like there's logic, quote unquote, to everything. Everyone driving, there are characters driving the cars, and if you stop in front of them and wave, they will wave back to you. I'm not kidding. It is the best. If you follow one of the buses, the characters will get.
I saw someone
that
like
cause
stood on the
traffic jams.
bridge.
Yep.
Yeah, they follow the trains. The trains have actual routes, which is crazy.
Same with the buses. You can watch a character get on a bus, follow the bus, and then the character will get off the bus somewhere else. Like it's the same character. It's like it's a living, breathing Mario Kart world, and that makes everything within it, even if it's a little empty sometimes in some places, just fun to explore because it's like a fully functional place around you.
It's
and
funny because
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, I think like this is one of those things where I was saying between the Switch 1 and Switch 2 that like we're not gonna see if the Switch 2 is just an upgrade. What we're gonna have to in terms of power, we're going to have to see the games do something different. Like the games are going to be the centerpiece of the console. And you could say Mario Kart 8 looked good and Mario Kart World looked better because like the characters are more expressive and animated, and you can make the carts dance, and every time they turn you see like that little bounce animation, like all that, better shadows, better lighting, whatever. But I think the real power of the Switch is in, like of the Switch 2 I mean, is in like these little moments of like the weather cycle, it's snowing now. It's there's characters that are waving at you. The memory on the console can have the character go from point A to point B and stick to that path. Like everything's like full systems in place that are like happening at a scale that probably simply wouldn't have been possible before. So it makes Mario Kart World really feel like this unique new way of experiencing what Mario Kart, and I guess you could call it its lore, were in past games, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and two things. Like one,
yeah,
I love how the open worldness of this is one of the things I was least excited about or had the most concerns with. And it ended up being like one of the things I love most about this. And to kind of like, I guess I kind of give kind of like an anecdote slash little thing that like curious to see like if you agree with this or not. But
Mm-hmm.
I was recently asked by a coworker like what my favorite era of gaming was, and it's funny because it didn't even really take much thought for me to say like the N64 Super Nintendo era, like that kind of
Mm.
era, and maybe some GameCube. But the biggest reason was because during that time I knew very little about game development, and as such, like game development, animation, or just like how any of that is made. So for all intents and purposes, like that is the era when things felt the most like real to me, where the games I played in, the worlds that like you explored felt the most like tangible. Like didn't matter
Yeah.
how like low poly or unpolished some of these characters were, they still felt to me like living, breathing creatures that embodied like this world. Like if a character went behind a door, I wondered what they were doing. If you were playing Mario Kart and you drove up to Peach's castle, I wondered if I could get inside if I boosted hard enough into it.
Right. Right.
Versus, entering GameCube
Yeah.
era into other eras, or even more so now because, like I work in the industry. It's like, oh, you know that there's nothing back there. You know that it's just like walls. And it's really hard to break out of that. And usually, like the saying goes, the better someone did a really good job at something. This is mainly referring to animation, and I guess you could say we'll call immersion. Like the
Hmm.
better uh, a studio does at something, if a studio does a really good job at something, then that means you probably didn't notice. Like the less you notice, the better a job they did. And
Right.
this
More
is one of the
organic it feels. Yeah.
yeah, because when you're watching Toy Story, you're just like, oh, Woody did this, but if like the
You're not
animation
like,
is
oh, the
like hitching once to
wireframe and the yeah, yeah.
yeah, like it feels like a character is doing this versus like, oh, you could tell like you just keep breaking, things keep popping that like keep like breaking the immersion.
Yeah.
And I would say this is one of the few games because I can't remember quite the last time because I know it doesn't happen often, but this was definitely one of those games where I felt a little bit of that like wonder, and it was really really cool.
I know exactly what you mean. I think I had that a little with Mario Odyssey as well at times, but something about so they keep saying it's
Ooh,
not
that's
an
a good
open
point. I
world game.
don't
They
think I
keep
have that
calling
with
it.
Odyssey. I
Oh, I
think it
had. Yeah, I
was
have with Odyssey, but
yeah.
the
I
New
was
Donk City
definitely
in particular.
yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah yeah. The that specific level where you go through the level. You know what the one I'm talking about.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
level
yeah,
where you go
yeah.
through the level. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, the level where you do the level in the level when you're leveling.
Yeah
Yeah,
yeah yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah,
celebration. Yeah, that specific
yeah, yeah.
sequence definitely gave me that moment for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the game, I just kind of every time I found a moon, like 5 seconds after a previous one, I just kept remembering how like, man, they're just like, what the heck is this? Like it
Yeah,
just kind of
it's
kept putting
interesting
me in that kind of weird
because
mood.
the the happenings in Mario Kart World are giving me that for sure. Like I have had fun. Like even when it's like there's a toad fishing or a toad camping or a Yoshi hitchhiking, and I just want to interact with them. Like we're in our mid 30s, and I'm like, oh my god, the toad's hitchhiking. Let me pull over and see how he reacts to me. Is just like it does capture that childhood magic. Where I think there's a little less of it for me is in the P block placement. I think so there are three things you can do in the open world for those that have played it. You can hit P blocks and do mission mode missions like in the DS game, but now they're in the open world. You can do and maybe the 3DS game. I think they're in the 3DS one as well. You can do collect Peach medallions, which are basically like Yoshi coins from Super Mario World, but they're just scattered and they're in strategic places where you have to do cool stuff to get them. And there are question mark panels they can also roll over. Same deal. They're in cool strategic places. Something about specifically the P blocks feels very much like, oh, the developer is placing a thing here for me to do. Like, because they're kind of random, but they're all in a place that then creates a cool experience that is tailored to that specific area. and teaches you some skill or improvement. Like, oh, now try grinding, a cool new thing you can
Yeah,
do in the game.
and
Wall
some of
jump,
them are
another
get
cool new thing
pretty
you can do.
nutty. They're just like really
Some are
hard.
crazy, and some are flying, and some are water. Like, it's really cool how it like is a way to teach you about the game, but the way they're kind of strategically, quote unquote, randomly placed, like feels very gamey in a way that the rest of the open world didn't. Like, the rest of the open world does have kind of that magic, and there's just a part of me that hopes they do DLC in the future. Like, I like finding the P blocks. I mean, the P blocks. Don't get me wrong. Like, I enjoy those missions a lot. But it feels very much like I'm doing a thing in a video game, while the rest of the world feels very organic. So what I'm hoping is in future DLC, when they're probably going to add a bunch of the characters that went missing. Like, I love the random collection of, like, NPC characters, and, like, who was the one? Oh, Conkdor. I kept saying the name of when we were doing game chat the other night. The big bird from, like, I don't know. There's just so many funny random guys that are in there. But I'm sure when they add, like, the Koopalings back or some of the other missing characters with DLC, I would love them to add more modes that are based around happenings in the world, more so than just we put a P block here or a Peach medallion there. Like, one thing I've seen people say online that I think would be super cool is if they did like a Crazy Taxi style mode where you're basically a Yoshi Diner Door Dasher. So you go to one Yoshi's, because those I think are very organically placed. So you go to one Yoshi, or they feel organic. I know they're not. And he gives you an assignment. You need to deliver food to a toad that's camping, or to a hitchhiking Yoshi, or to some other thing somewhere else, maybe in Crown City or whatever. And then the game kind of gives you a time limit, and you find the fastest route to go. And there's an arrow that's kind of guiding you, so you have some structure to the world. And it's still gamey, but you're doing something in the world with the characters of the world that benefits more characters of the world. Like, it just feels a little more like in it, you know? Like, I think that would be really cool. And they could even do it like Zelda notes. If you have Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition, you can use the Switch Online app, and it basically is a GPS to find like the Korok seeds. Like, it literally, like, your phone will speak to you like a GPS. That would be kind of cool if they had a GPS for Mario Kart. Yeah, even if it's just to find the P blocks at that point, like, or P switches, you know, that's fine. But just like something that makes it feel a little more part of the world versus just overlaid on the world. That's the only thing I think is missing from Mario Kart World right now. But all the happenings in the world, and when you're doing races and you're driving through all these interconnected spaces and places, and now I'm just rhyming. But no, when you're doing like a Grand Prix or Knockout Tour, like, the way things flow together is very organic. The way that I think someone calculated 202 different routes in the game that they can leverage in different ways is really cool and feels like a real world. It's just how they overlaid it with like the super gamey, like, P switches over there. That kind of took me out a little, but I still have a lot of fun finding them. Just to your point about like a living, breathing world, that's the one thing I think they could improve, possibly.
Yeah, but like you said, looking forward for them to adding more things. They definitely lend themselves. It does seem like it might take more work on their part if they want to not break the immersion. Like, I do like the pipe dream of like, oh, if they really want to, they could create another giant connected island that doesn't necessarily have to connect to this one. Maybe it's just like a pipe somewhere that just takes you to the second one. And then
that's why you called it a pipe dream.
Yeah, and it just has like another group of courses that are interconnected in its own little world. That,
well, I mean,
I'm not expecting it to be the size of this one, but
the obvious thing for that is like, if they were to bring back like cross, and one of the things I did like is they kind of scaled it back from being Nintendo Kart back to Mario Kart, and this is Mario Kart World. But I keep harping on this idea, and I'm going to keep harping on it. Maximus Cup, Tetris 99, great way to promote every new release that Nintendo does. Free to Switch Online players. You get a new skin when you do it. It's a weekend, and they're celebrating Mario and Luigi, Xenoblade, what have you. If they do, obviously for bigger releases only, you're on Splatland Island for Splatoon. You're in Donkey Kong. Yeah, you're in Donkey Kong Jungle. You're in the planet from Metroid Prime 4. Do a small island, track or 2 or 3. One interconnect, maybe like enough for one knockout tour for that island. We haven't even talked about knockout tour, by the way. So fun. But like, maybe they just do, each island has enough to do one knockout tour. So 6 different, I guess, terrains in a small space. And just put that as DLC like once or twice a year. I mean, this game, the attachment rate for this game, in Japan at least, is 78% of all Switch owners bought this game.
Really high.
Of course, bundle. That's a big reason why. But like 78%, like this thing is basically a Switch pack-in for all intents and purposes. So treat it that way and make it a game as service for the whole life of the system and keep introducing new islands, bring back characters. You know, I really love the costumes and the personality of the costumes. Burger Bud Toad is my all-time fave. Aristocrat Boo is great with his monocle and mustache.
Biker Bowser ended up becoming one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, Greaser Biker. Yeah, he's great. But like they can lean in on that, and then they can clean up the character menu. So this is one of the weirder choices. I said there were good choices and weird choices. Why is each costume its own character, and why do those all move around haphazardly until you unlock them all? Like leave them locked in. Do it by character. You can right, but by default you don't. That's weird. Like by default it doesn't. I don't know why.
At first,
like
I mean, at first I was
they
kind
can
of
fix along the way, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was kind of a little. I wouldn't say annoyed, but just like also weirded that the characters were their own. I mean, that the costumes were their own character. I mean, that's always been the case in every Mario Kart, so it is kind of par for the course.
Well, no. In Mario Kart 8, if you want to change your Yoshi color, or some stuff
but
like
that was also
Link, you can change his outfits by just selecting within the menu.
Hold it, I will.
Okay, Phoenix, right?
But those were literally just colors, though. Every single one of these has their own specific animations for that costume.
That's
so Bowser,
true. That's fair.
So Bowser actually like has like these little greaser animations. Bumblebee Wario will actually hover in his bike whenever he tries to get coins. Like every single Yoshi has their own animations. It's not just like a copy paste. They like went above and beyond for each. Like they're basically their own character. They kind of give them their own personalities.
That's fair. Okay, I respect that. But yeah, if they go through and start adding more characters or stuff, I feel like the DLC, the roadmap for this game that they haven't said yet because it's only been out for 2 weeks. But I imagine the roadmap of support for this game is going to be bonkers and last the whole Switch 2 life cycle. And I'm very excited for what they can do.
You think they're actually going to continue to support this game?
Oh yeah. It's like the biggest selling debut game in Japan or something ever, or something like that. It's going, this thing, and there's so many odd, like, one-off things they didn't include. Like, 200cc is MIA, while granted 150cc definitely feels harder here.
And 200cc has also never been a default option anyway.
Yeah, so that'll probably come later. The ability to access...
missing, which has been
the
great.
Replay features are there mostly if you go, but only when you're just done with the race. But you can zoom
want to be able to
and change
save
camera
replays for later.
True. You can't do that currently.
Nope.
They limited, there's stuff that's limited. Like if we're getting to weird choices they did, which I think are more time constrained, even though they've been working on this thing since the Switch 1 launched, but not kidding it. They really have. But online lobbies for Knockout Tour, you either do only friends or only strangers, or maybe you get lucky and you join a friend who happens to be playing in a public one, maybe. But if there's a way to like take a friend online into a Knockout Tour with strangers, that seems cool, like an obvious thing.
Yeah, it's like they have to join one, then you have to join there, then you have to wait until the second open.
Yeah, it's like a daisy chain. It's weird. Like the ability to access 3-lap versions of some tracks. Like you can technically sort of do it in verses if you do like a certain set of things, but if you could like just make those available. Like I really do like the connected tracks. But...
Yeah, like if you're doing a custom lobby, you can basically pick any track you want in any configuration, which is really cool to have all those options at your disposal. But if you're doing against just random people online, you're just at the whim of what it gives you, which is always 3 interconnected sections. So you're always doing a Grand Prix style one where do the connected port and then 1 lap, or you pick random, which is your only option to do a 3-lap one. Occasionally it might give you another separated one, but we are already developing typical like Mario Kart etiquette. There's always a thing like that online, and you will see maybe more so, maybe a little more now, but over the next coming weeks, you're going to see more and more of those lobbies just always picking random, just because they just want to do 3 laps.
Right, and that's the thing is like I'm sure in a future update, like all the stuff I'm rounding off is like things they can improve with over the roadmap, because like making that more accessible. Like here's the thing, we didn't really talk about Knockout Tour, we didn't really talk about the interconnected tracks. They are very cool. They help the world feel alive and connected and real, but. It is kind of sometimes like not the best when I'm like, oh, Wario Stadium, awesome. And then we do like 2/3 of a lap in Wario Stadium, it's done. You know what I mean? Like for some reason, Koopa Beach always gets 5 laps. And by the way, the EDM remix of both the Koopa Beach music and the Baby Park music, excellent. So good. Yeah, yeah, and it's great. But then like so you get 5 laps of Koopa Beach, but you get like barely a lap of Wario Stadium, and there's no way to get in between that with those 2 tracks.
Oh, well,
So
actually, I thought you
like
were bringing up Baby Park. I mean, Koopa Beach for the other reason, because
the
normally
EDM.
when you
Hmm.
do Koopa Beach as a standalone track, yeah, you do get 5 laps. But even so,
Yeah.
it's still really short because it's just a small donut.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it like you said, it's Baby
But
Park. Yeah.
but if you do say if you were at a Wario Shipyard and the
Hmm.
next track you're gonna play is Koopa Beach, the track that needs 5 laps to feel substantial, you will
Yeah. You
drive
don't get it.
2/3 for that to Koopa Beach and then just do 1 lap of Koopa Beach. And 1 lap of
Yeah,
Koopa Beach is like nothing. So it's like maybe
and the
10
thing
seconds in the
and
lap you actually were
yeah, and
hoping
the
to
thing
get.
about that is like they're fully constructed. They just need to give players a way to do more of those. Like I feel like Toad Factory goes through the same trial and tribulation. Bowser's Castle can go through. Like all the tracks that aren't the starter tracks of the interconnected sets kind of get short end of the stick a little. So I imagine a future update will allow you to do full races on those more easily. And again, I think the interconnected thing's really cool. It makes the world feel
Honestly, all they have
alive.
to do is
But
like
like, it's just a weird oversight to not let you just do all of them on 3 laps. Like
yeah,
even when we were real quick, I just say when we were like confused after I played the demo, and we were like, wait, so is it 3 tracks? Is it one? Like, is it 3 laps? Is it one? Can you pick? Can you not? Like, in reality, the answer was all of the above to whichever way we wanted to pose that question because every track has like all these different configurations that are not super accessible to understand. So that's something they could probably fix. But what are you gonna say though?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like the easiest thing they could do is like because they gave you 3 tracks connected to the track you just did and random. All they have to do is have you press a button, and
Yeah.
you're either selecting, you know, the the predetermined like path to that track or the standalone, and that's it. Like
Or and
just let
hear me
like
out.
you can still let them vote for it, and it'll be like, oh, cool, we have like people that voted for like Airship Fortress, but 5 of those people picked the standalone version, and 3 of those people picked the route that the game had pre-selected for you. That way,
Right.
because I still believe for the online that yeah, it shouldn't always random. Like it should be a catered, pre-selected course to pick from, so that you're at least going a certain route. But actually, that being said, and I just realized that does also have its own fault because when my brother and I played the Grand Prix versus mode online for about an
Hmm.
hour. We started in Bowser's Castle. We then did like Airship Fortress, then we did to Shy Guy Bazaar, then we went to Mario Circuit. And because we kept trying to pick random, this was I think still close to launch day, so people were still picking other tracks. But we basically just
Did a
after
loop.
we did like Mario Circuit, we went like to Wario Stadium and then like back to Bowser's Castle. So we just did like a little loop and then
Yeah.
we were like, well, I want to see the other side of the world, but then we couldn't really leave. And then after Bowser's Castle, they went back to Airship Fortress and we're like, okay, like we're just doing this again. Like we're getting further away from the other options. And we
Yeah.
just weren't
Yeah.
getting
And you
lucky
kind of
with
get
picking
stuck.
random. So,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a new
There's pros and
problem it
cons to
created,
each, but
essentially.
one of the things that's kind of interesting is like the idea of how long a Mario Kart race is no longer a defined thing. Like it used to be, it's 3 laps. It takes about this many minutes. And then Baby Park back in the day was like, what if we're this many laps but still take the amount of time? And this Mario Kart very much feels like we don't care how many laps, we don't care how long the race ends up taking from start to finish. We're going to in fact give you a mode called Knockout Tour where you race for like 12 straight minutes. So enjoy, not 12, but whatever it is. So enjoy all these options. And that kind of makes me think, well, if you're comfortable letting people stack as much time as they want and nothing's consistent, why not just introduce a feature where you select the track and it's like, do you want 3 laps or one? Like just let people pad it out if they want to at that point. You don't need to make someone say, oh, you can only see great block ruins. Great theming on that track, by the way, for the 1 lap because you drove to it. Like if someone wants to do 3 laps, give them the option, like let people fully customize it. All the building blocks of this amazing world and these track designs are there. It's just like how they're going to let people like choose to experience them, which right now feels a little weird in some of the automated choices that they chose on the development side. But We'll get there. I definitely think over time they're going to add a lot of cool stuff and new islands. And they'll probably call Isle Delfino if they want to stick to Mario. Feels like an obvious one. The Piantas are already in the game, and they can introduce the Nokis as well. Like, it just seems there's so many. Yoshi's Island, take the track from the Booster Course Pass. Like, there's ways they can integrate more of the retro tracks. Like, as is, I thought it was interesting which retro tracks they chose and which they did and how few there are, and how somehow, as much as I like the tracks, Sky High Sunday from the Booster Course Pass was one of the limited few that made it into this. So, but on the flip side, we also got DK Pass, which I love. That music is very nostalgic for me to my high school era.
Yeah, some of these tracks are so redesigned that I could barely tell. Didn't even realize they were, like Cocoa Mountain and Wario Stadium specifically. Like, I did not
Wario's Dam, Wario's Dam had elements of old Wario's Dam that felt very familiar, but
like, to the N64 one, like, you know, first you're missing the.
Oh no! It wasn't that one. It was the one from. I don't think it's based on the N64 one. I think it's based on what? It feels more like the other one from the later game.
GameCube?
Really?
Wario Coliseum. Yeah, Wario Coliseum had a dome.
Yeah, it felt like Coliseum.
Wario Coliseum had like a dome, and it also had like a spiral that you do at the end.
That's right.
Just, like,
honestly,
drifting.
This whole time I thought it was Wario Coliseum they were
this
referencing.
proves my point. Like,
yes, it
because
does.
Because I watched a video after the fact where like you see the side by side, and the track layout is pretty much identical. It's just the aesthetic completely changed. Now it looks more like something from like Mad Max, which admittedly, like, it looks cool, it looks great, but it's like, I barely recognize it. Like, even the remix, I mean, the music's like freaking amazing. Like, going like Yoshi's
the music, we haven't even touched on that. 200 tracks, so many great remixes.
It's like
Yoshi Story end credit,
Brothers
excellent. Yeah, except unlike Smash Brothers, they don't tell you the music that's playing. Another quality of life thing they can improve. That's a weird choice to me. Yeah, exactly.
That's the biggest fumble, not letting you listen to the music on command or putting it on the music app.
Well, that's the thing. So, right as we were going to record, Nintendo announced this week's update to the Nintendo Music app after taking a 1 week break. And I was like, oh man, it's probably going to be Mario Kart World because like they took a 1 week break. No, it was Clubhouse games, 51 worldwide games. So they got World in there, but it was the wrong World. And I love Clubhouse games. It was like a pandemic savior. Like, I played it so much, Rachel and I, during the pandemic. And the music's actually surprisingly catchy. But like, to do that when we're all waiting for Mario Kart World's 200 excellent remixes, like, come on, Nintendo. I understand they want people to buy the game and hear the music in the game, but in that case, tell us what the songs are when they're playing, and also lower the cart volume a little. That was another oddity. Another weird tiny choice. Not a bad thing per se, but the cart sound effects are rather loud compared to the music, and there's no way to adjust that manually like you can in other games. So I can sit here all day with, like, here's another cool thing they did where I'm like, almost. HD Rumble, I really like over certain textures. It does a different effect. I like that when there's some sort of creature coming at you. That's another cool thing they add to this Mario Kart, is it actually feels like a Mario World where enemies charge you and are on the track, and there are animals and like stuff around you. It's not like the tracks are pristine except for items. Like, it's living, breathing stuff happening. Goombas will come at you. Snowballs obviously do in some games, but now, you know, it's like creatures too. But whatever it is that's coming at you, the HD Rumble actually makes it feel like when you pass by that, it's passing by you on that side. Like, you feel like the rumble go like from the bottom of the Joy-Con to the top, or the top to the bottom, or whatever, as it's going past you, which is really cool. But Law Train doesn't have any rumble, and the rumble they did is actually really subtle. I'm sure they've tested it a ton, but I'd be interested to see if they could like play around with the HD Rumble, because it can do some really impressive effects, more so than the original. So it'd be cool if they could like, oh, you're stuck in mud, well, it's gonna like feel like your tires are spinning out, you know? Like, there's things they could go a little further with a lot of this stuff. But overall, yeah, it's a really good package.
And we did talk a lot about, you know, the impact of the overworld, but I think we definitely need to touch on what also ended up admittedly being the biggest change to it. And of course, like, you know, basically what people are calling it now, Mario Kart Rails, Mario Kart Pro 3.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like
Tony
this
Hawk's
game,
Pro
like,
Mario Kart.
Like the fact that you could ride walls now, pretty much any wall. They basically took a page from Breath of the Wild and like, you could climb anything, and you could like wall off of anything. You could trick off of everything, and because of that, shortcuts are probably the craziest they've ever been in any Mario Kart. They look amazing. They're so far pretty fun to do, but yeah, half the time if you're basically just driving on the road, you know, barring the in between sections, if we're just talking about just the isolated stages. if you're just on the road for like more than 4 seconds, then you're probably doing something wrong. Like you have to pretty much be like grinding the whole time, or wall riding, or
Yeah,
doing like
it's
crazy
it.
alley oops.
I have a
The skill
slight
ceiling
fear
for the
because I'm
game went from like, easily accessible to everybody to this game's gonna take a really, 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 really long time to master, which is great.
and I do have a
It's there.
yeah, and they're leaning in on that. Nintendo announced a Mario Kart World Invitational tournament later this year. That will be happening. That's going to lean along that skill ceiling and skill set. But I do have a slight fear in the back of my mind because I'm not the best at the wall grind. I mean, the wall jump. I'm not the best at the grind. I'm okay at. But like it's for my muscle memory and brain are so wired to you drift. You drift, you drift, you drift. That whenever I don't drift, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. It just doesn't feel right. And I can't like, oh, I grind. Okay, I hold down jump and then I jump onto something and then I grind. Like that's just, I'm getting there. I'm slow. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. But I do have the slight fear in the back of my mind that the extent to which you can grind and wall jump could become a snaking problem like Mario Kart DS had, where basically either you do it and you win or you don't do it and you lose and there's no opportunity in between. We'll see if that pans out, but that's kind of been a little voice in my head of like, are they going to like lean on this a little too hard to the point where like if you don't grind on everything, you just aren't, to your point, if you're on the track for more than 4 seconds, is it going to be a problem? Like it'll be interesting to see how like the meta, if you will, evolves. And again, because this game probably is going to get a lot of updates, I imagine there will be tweaks and balances made. So I'm curious if that's going to affect rubber banding, if that's going to affect the grinding, the wall jumps, the systems that are in place. Like this is the first time they could potentially update a Mario Kart in that way. So it'll be really interesting to see from like a competitive scene, quote unquote, how this game evolves. Because like snaking, they didn't have updates for it, so Nintendo was stuck with snaking. Like they saw it was being used a little too heavily and they were just stuck. They could actually adjust here. I don't know if they would. I don't know if they should. But it's a thought that they couldn't have 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. But I do really like the game. I do really like the track. I think the world teaming's great. I know I keep saying we haven't talked about it, but it's great. Knockout Tour. We haven't talked about it, but it is great. It's a really fun elimination mode.
Yeah, I think
Arguably the most chaotic you can get. Yeah.
Yeah, because after everything we said about like the open world and just how interconnectedness work, like, yeah, there isn't too much more for me to say about it, except it's just really fun and it makes all those in between sections like it gives them all the worst they need because like while they're not my favorite thing when we're playing the Grand Prix mode, the Knockout Tour is so much fun and I love the fact that you're just kind of driving, like, for a while and just like fighting for that like first place slot. Just it's really, really fun. That being said though, to get 3 stars, a 3-star ranking in that, you have to place first 6 times because you have to be first at every single one of those intersections, which is really hard to do. And I hope this gets fixed because I don't like that this is a thing, but apparently there's a rumor going around that to beat this game, apparently the computer will scale to how you're playing in real time, kind of like how the amiibo in Smash Brothers will learn from you.
I've seen this same rumor. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're not drifting or basically playing with as minimal effort as possible, in theory, the computers will also play with minimal effort as possible. So all you have to do is just use your item knowledge and track knowledge and general fundamentals without drifting to keep a lead, which
it
doesn't feel super great. But
it's interesting in like a new age rubber banding way, like because the games used to have rubber banding where you get to a certain place and they would catch up with you if you're alone for too long, basically. And this seems kind of like the modern version of that. The thing I'm a little going back to the skill ceiling thing. The thing I'm a little concerned about is you're luring people into a false sense of security about how to play the game, and then you're throwing them online, and suddenly it's like, oh crap, what's all this grinding? I mean, the missions in the P switches help you learn to grind. Obviously, you've seen some characters grind even if you don't. Like even 100cc, they start grinding. They don't in 50 though. But I mean, I'm curious if like for the youngins, if it's gonna set a weird expectation, then they go online and suddenly it's like a whole different game. Like it goes from Mario Kart to Tony Hawk, So it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. But as it is, what a game. What a great launch title. Like that's going to be such a defining game for the Switch and Switch 2 and hopefully be part of its whole story of the entire generation with updates and stuff. I'm really banking on these updates. I think they're going to happen. I'm excited. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, so that's Mario Kart, I guess. Anything else on Mario Kart before I talk about one last game?
No, it's great, and I am happy with the time I spent on it.
Likewise. So let's wrap things up. We're talking about them in the sequence I played them. What'd you say?
All $50 I spent on it.
50? Oh, because you got the bundle, right? I got physical, so I paid 80. And you know what? Toad's costumes alone, Burger Bud, $80 price tag, 100% in. Forget the rest of the game. Just that's worth $80.
Kind of a shame because I hope that doesn't mean we'll never get Chef Toad in there, but I guess.
Oh, that'd be a good tie-in, but yeah. I mean, well, would he work at Yoshi's? Like, because Yoshi's making the burgers and stuff. Also, can we talk about like the food and how it like transforms you on the fly, and also the Kamek ability, how it transforms you on the fly? This whole game has a very sort of Mario Wonder vibe in terms of like, here's a random thing that happens to you for a few minutes and done. But yeah, what were we actually saying? Oh yeah, the cow you can get a burger for the cow. The cow can eat a cow. I'm guessing they're vegan burgers in that case, but it's weird that Mario Kart World supports cannibalism, if not. Anyway, Switch 2 Welcome Tour. The last topic of the very long episode we're having. So I actually played these in the same sequence we talked about. So I spent a lot of time with Mario Kart, and then I jumped over to Switch 2 Welcome Tour. And I already had been using the Switch for a few days, and it was weird to have it be like, this is the left Joy-Con. This is the right Joy-Con. I'm like, I've been on it for 3 days. Yep. But more seriously, I don't know if you remember how I said at the start of this episode that the Switch 2 kind of felt like everyone nailed the assignment, was like the term I was using. Welcome Tour is like after those students got an A on their assignment, they went and boasted to their parents, aka us, all about their achievements and how they did it. Like this game is like a victory lap of look at all the cool things the Switch 2 had. There's stuff you don't even know about that's really cool in here. So as you know, Angel, and as folks out there listening probably know, this whole game, Welcome Tour, is positioned as a museum or like an exhibition in which you get to explore the Switch 2, learn all its ins and outs. The theme's actually quite charming, at least for me as the guy who literally opened the episode with facts about sales numbers and loves to attend video game events. But like thematically, the game's motif actually is a fun mirroring of those types of like events or museums. They have like little NPCs scattered throughout discussing the exhibits, and each tech demo and mini game is staffed by like an NPC whose dialogue actually kind of reminds me of the tone actual real Nintendo reps take at actual real Nintendo events. Like they captured the essence of them very well. I will say some will probably find it all too sterile, but like to me it has a personality and like meta-ness to it that I'm actually enjoying. So it all starts with you waiting in line to get into the Switch 2 exhibition, which is perhaps a little PTSD inducing for folks like me who had all those online and physical lines we stood in to get our Switch 2s. But rather quickly, you do enter the exhibit on the left Joy-Con. Quite literally, you're physically on the left Joy-Con, followed by the tablet, then the right Joy-Con, then like inside the right Joy-Con, then accessories, and on and on. The basic flow of the game is that you go through each of these exhibits, you collect stamps, and you earn medals from the tech demos and minigame stations. Finding all the stamps in one area is what lets the staffer then open up the door to the next exhibit, while your overall medal count is what grants you access to more minigames. So some of these are a bit basic. Like to get the stamps, you just need to walk all over that given part of the Switch, be it a Joy-Con, the tablet, whatever. And you essentially stand at each unique feature to trigger a little display kiosk that then grants you the stamp. So for like the Joy-Con, you'd go to each face button, then you'd walk to the control stick, then the screenshot button, then the choose shoulder buttons. Sometimes it can be a little unnecessarily tricky because they want you to go stand at something you can't see, like the NFC reader on the right Joy-Con or some specific internal when inside one of the components. But for the most part, it feels pretty much like the page of a manual where they just identify each thing you can press or use, except you're the arrow next to the label, like manually going spot to spot instead of just having like a bunch of labels on a single picture. But then there's, which is,
just to rudely interrupt real quick.
Of course, by all means.
Super minor nitpick that I forgot, but only because you just used cursor and player. And you're...
Are we talking about Mario Kart now?
Yep.
Just want to make sure I know where we're going.
Yeah, okay. To go back to Mario Kart
we're hitting the rewind button on Mario Kart World, I see.
Yeah, to take another pit stop at Mario Kart real quick. Why can't I use the cursor to select the stage? Like, if I'm looking at the overworld map, if I'm playing multiplayer and I want to select the stage, I have to drag the very slow cursor around using the joystick from one end of like the field to the other, and it's just not great. It's novel at first, but ultimately I'm like, why can't I pull up a quick list just to like, you know, flip through it really quick or use the built-in
That's a good point.
cursor? Like
That's a good point.
it's a totally a quality of life thing, but like the cursor is there. It seems like it'd almost be perfect, but you're just like using the analog stick and the medium speed cursor, dragging around this large world. But that's it. That's all I have.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Answer that question, Nintendo. Anyway, let's go back into the line to get into the Switch 2 exhibition. Okay, we're waiting in line. Okay, we're back at the left Joy-Con. Okay, we're talking about... All right, so I left it off that like to see stuff on the Joy-Con, you go up to it, you have to get the stamp. So that's the most like basic thing. You literally just walk around the entire thing and it's like, this is a speaker, this is a USB port, and you have to like get the stamp for that. Then there's the quiz desks, which are laid out in various spots within each exhibit. So there's a couple quiz desks on the Joy-Con and on the tablet. And speaking to the attendant will open a set of typically like 3 to 5 separate display panels, each of which then offer insight into some Switch 2 functionality tied to the part of the system that you're in the exhibit for. These can include, specs about the given feature, thoughts behind the decision, how it relates to past examples in Nintendo history. Honestly, I'm totally the right demographic for these. Like, I legitimately do find it interesting how the speakers in the Switch 2 are actually the speakers from the Switch OLED, but they now use like foam padding and are angled more downward to maximize the sound without rattling the device. Like, I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. Or how like the embedded magnets in the Joy-Cons are actually the SL and SR buttons, which are made of stainless steel, and then they magnetize to magnets hidden behind the color strips on the unit itself, and those color strips are actually just really thin vinyl stickers. Like, I was like, oh, that's cool. Or the evolution of like Nintendo's haptic feedback from the N64 up through HD Rumble 2 on the Switch 2, like a timeline. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, this is totally my jam. And to the point of the game having some charm, like, so you learn this information, and then you take a quiz about the displays you just read, essentially, which in concept is rather weird and, again, maybe sterile feeling for some people that they're like, we just told you how a Joy-Con works. Now take a quiz telling us you understand how the Joy-Con works. Like, why would you need to take a quiz? But the answers in the quiz are often humorous or meta. Like, one of the answers of how the Joy-Con connected to the main system is like obviously not the real answer. It was like, by the power of love. Or like there's another one asking about like Joy-Con 2's HD Rumble, like what actually shakes inside it and how, and one of the answers is like, what shakes is the foundation of our existence. And like, they had a little fun writing it. Like, it's dorky. It's very dorky, but it's fun. I'm enjoying it. So that's one thing you can do. There's stamps, there's quizzes, and to go further into the interactive aspects of the game, then there's the tech demos, which are absolutely not mini games. The attendant of the in-game station for each tech demo almost always tells you it is not a mini-game, it is not a game. They're just some sort of like interactive showcase of the technology, kind of like a less weird version of like the WarioWare toys you can unlock. Some are pretty straightforward, like view some fireworks with HDR set to on or off, or guess the frame rate of various balls flying anywhere from 30 to 120 frames. I think I talked about that one earlier this episode. And those in and of themselves are, if you think about it, actually kind of trippy because of how un-Nintendo they are in a Nintendo product. Like, this is the company that refuses to ever release console specs. And they're sitting here espousing the power of a feature like variable refresh rate. Like, in a way, it's the story of the Switch 2, though, right? Like, they're marketing stuff they never previously talk about. They have, like, the CEO of NVIDIA spouting tech specs in an official video on Nintendo socials the day before the launch of the Switch 2. Like, this is a piece of the narrative now for Nintendo, all this tech stuff. So it is actually kind of interesting to see them bake it into a game and explain it to you and walk you through examples. And it's a trippy, but it's interesting. But then the other tech demos are more creative and more like typical Nintendo quirky ways or fun ways, like playing. There's one that shows you how many pixels are in a 4K TV by having you play the entirety of World 1-1 of Super Mario Brothers in a pixel for pixel perfect recreation, except because you're on a 4K TV, it's like microscopic and the entire level fits on one screen with room to spare. So they have you do that, and that's kind of fun. There's like little like achievements you can do, like get the 1-up mushroom, get through the whole level without dying, like different little things. So there's kind of purpose to the tech demo besides just trying it. There's also a really neat one where they demonstrate how the vibrations of HD Rumble 2 can make sounds. The Switch 1 Joy-Cons could kind of do this, but Switch 2's, like, little spoiler alert, if it's possible to spoil Welcome Tour, these sounds that they make, they start as just rumbles and vibrations, and they slowly morph from generic buzzing into like Mario sound effects, like full on the coin and the 1-up mushroom. Perfect recreation.
That was a
no
thing
speaker
in Odyssey. Because I remember
it was, but not at this level. It could do like a it did it for the. I forgot what enemy it was. The guys who like grow big on the vines, like they stretch. It would go like bloop every time they did, and I thought that was so cool at the time. But this is like full on. It's making a ba-ding or like a mushroom sound without there being a speaker at all. It's real. Obviously, it's because of the vibration. You know, a speaker is just a set of vibrations, so this is no different. But it's a pretty cool tech demo. But yeah, the point is these tech demos gently move towards more of an interactive thing in the game and more of like the quirky Nintendo stuff that a lot of people said was missing from a lot of Switch era Nintendo. So like that quirkiness, like, you know, your Joy-Cons making Mario sounds, or like Mario's play Mario on a really small view on a big TV. Like those vibes continue even more when you get to the actual, what they call mini games in Welcome Tour, which have you leverage like all sorts of different functions different ways. Some are less exciting than others. A couple are kind of like Flash style mouse games where you need to dodge objects or collect items just by moving the Joy-Con mouse. Another actually riffs on mouse control though, by pairing it with gyro control. So you have to aim and hit a golf ball into a hole by moving and rotating your wrist, which was kind of interesting. But then you get the weird, quirky, like classic, bizarro Nintendo stuff. There's one where you have to place angles of the Switch 2 kickstand to match. It'll be like, what's 50 degrees? And you have to like figure out what 50 degrees would be with the Switch 2 kickstand. Or there's one that's basically Twister for your fingers, where they're showcasing how the the touchscreen has 10 finger touch points, which I think the Switch 1 also had, but there's 10, so they have you basically play Twister with your fingers, where there's a bunch of rows of different colored dots, and it'll tell you what you have to press, and you have to keep all your fingers down. So it'll be like, you know, press a pink dot, press a blue dot, press a green dot, press another pink dot, and it was surprisingly hard. Like, it was actually a challenge. And that's the thing with these mini games, is both the straightforward and the quirky.
Did you use the control to make sure it was actually hard and not just Jason hard?
Well, I mean, no. I did not, but the game said if you're having trouble, have a second person help you out. The game told me that, and I did it solo, so thank you very much. I'm just a finger twister pro. But, okay, you'll try it sometime. I'll bring that over, and you could try it, and you'll see. You'll see, and you'll report back on this very podcast. But the thing about the minigames in general, whether that one was hard or not, straightforward games, quirky games, regardless, they do have multiple tiers of difficulty and like new like layers to them that unlock with more of the medals you earn. And you unlock the layer challenges not in a sequential order. So it's not like you're just playing multiple variants of the same minigame back to back to back. Like you're going all over the museum. And then you can quick travel with X back and forth. And as you get more medals, you're jumping between different exhibits and different minigames. So it feels like there's variety because you're doing like the mouse game, then the angle game, then the finger twister, then the Mario, then back, then back, then back. It actually makes it feel a little more gamey. So like all in all, I'm actually finding Welcome Tour to be pretty fun in a nerdy, like lover of fun facts sort of way. I mean, you know this, Angel, but for listeners out there, our friend group used to call me Snapple because I'd keep sharing random facts like the underside of a Snapple cap does.
Oh man, this is probably gave you enough fuel for like the next couple of years or what?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, a game not just about random factoids and features, but Nintendo ones, where the people who made the system are quite proudly telling all the little hidden gems of knowledge about the thing they made. Oh, that's so up my alley. It is so up my alley. Like this game, and it's all written with some like charm and personality and a little bit of like punnery and like it for me, at least, it does not feel at all sterile, as I suspect other people might find it to be, because I just love this stuff. Like, I like taking the quizzes because I'm a total weirdo. Like, the fact the game is quizzing me about something I paid for already, as if, like, it somehow matters. Like, I paid $450 for this system. I paid $10 for the game, and now the game's like, so what type of foam is used on the speaker? I'm like, oh, I know. Like, I love this stuff. So for me, I don't regret paying the $10 at all. I've put multiple hours into Welcome Tour happily. The experience is fun for me. Some of the mini games offer legit challenge to me. Like I'm telling you, the finger twister game, no joke. And there does seem to be some replayability because of the multiple versions of each mini game. But there's a separate question. Like I'm enjoying it. I'm fine with having spent the $10, but should we have to pay $10 for this? As someone who's actually like now played it for multiple hours, I'm still kind of in the camp that would benefit from being a pack-in. Even if Nintendo's being they're like internal bean counters justified otherwise. And I say that because at the end of the day, even right down to the name of Welcome Tour, this is a tour of your new system. Like, yes, they augmented it with some mini games that are pretty fun, quirky, at times challenging. Yes, they put collectibles to make it more gamey. There's even this weird lost and found thing. Like, as you go around the exhibit, you just find items and you take them to lost and found. I don't even think you get anything at the end. It's just kind of there. So, like, there's always little things they do that are like kind of gamish. But most of the exploration is you walking around to read labels of parts, just like a manual will tell you. And I'm enjoying it a lot, but the optics of paying for what a lot of people will see as a manual does add a roadblock to allowing more people to enjoy all these fun facts and features that the developers are trying to flex and show off and be proud of, Like, I feel like I know Nintendo has this mindset.
That is really unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, like I know Nintendo has this mindset of, everything we do should have a value. Like that's what Reggie had to push against to get Wii Sports bundled, was this idea from Japan and Miyamoto personally of like, anything we make has value. Like we don't want to give it away for free. And I get that here, but like the amount of stuff they're sharing, the amount of insights they're telling, little things you learn, like, they made the power cord more flexible so people could coil it and maneuver it better. Like, or, the feet on the dock are designed in such a way that it won't get lurched as easily if something pulls it, like, or if you pick up the Switch and it doesn't like detach right away. Like there's all these little things they teach you about and tell you about, and you could tell they're very proud of what they achieved. They understood the assignment. They nailed the assignment. That's my running comment on the Switch 2 this whole episode. But this $10 price tag is kind of stopping them from being able to brag freely about it. And I feel like that's a little unfair of Nintendo's business side to their development side in a way. So
I really do wish more people would enjoy that game.
Yeah, that said, apparently it's number 7 on the eShop last I looked. So people are buying it. And given how many Switches are out there, this thing probably sold hundreds of thousands of copies. Yeah. There's other freaks like me that are buying this and enjoying it. So, yeah. I mean, people are speaking with their wallet, and it seems to be, yeah, sure, we'll get it. So, but yeah, it's I just wish it was.
I drew the line, and I have been standing firm.
Yeah.
Part of the first time in a while, I feel like in the past,
you got 1-2 Switch, dude. You bought 1-2 Switch by
choice. That's where I got burned, and I'm still like recovering from it. Like honestly, like that was like you took way more from me than when 1-2 Switch like deserved. That game is fun, but it's like $15 to $20 fun.
And I will say, this is honestly, a bigger, better package for less.
Yeah,
because I played
which makes it hurt that much
and
more.
This is a lot better.
Makes me less
I
inclined to give it to them. But yeah,
I know. Yeah, it's like point of diminishing returns. Like, well, I already gave him that. Do I now give him this? but yeah, I think if you have an opportunity to have Welcome Tour fall on your lap, there's fun to be had. There's interesting facts to read. Like, it's actually a really cool. Even like I was saying, even Nintendo talking about like techie things and explaining them to like Nintendo fans who don't know the tech, or to casuals who don't know the tech. Like, I've been learning things. Like, I feel educated out of this thing. It's cool. But it is funny that like the people who would appreciate it most are probably the people who are most resistant to buying it on principle, because they've been around the Nintendo block so many times, so like you. So yeah, but it's an interesting experience. If you have $10 lying around and you don't have principles like me, feel free to just buy it and be principleless. So that's Welcome Tour. And that's the episode, I think. Anything else we want to touch on? That was a long one.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything. There's still more to discover in Mario Kart World and just keep playing. So looking forward to
more to discover with Switch 2 as well. I mean, it was just announced Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Honestly, we haven't even touched the fact
direct in a couple of days.
Yeah, and I should say this because I completely forgot about this, but the GameCube, I have played a good amount of F-Zero GX. It is,
doesn't it hold up really well graphically?
It's just simply amazing. The fact that you can switch it to, because it's already playing in HD. I don't think it needed to do like a progressive scan mode option, and you could make it widescreen. So basically, it's like a modern F-Zero, because
it's great and it has online.
It's 4x6 or whatever it is, but yeah, it's literally right where we left off. And then I played a little of Soul Calibur, was never really much into it, but it was fun, and I would say it still held up. And Wind Waker, I knew what I'm getting into, so I haven't really bothered, but it is cool that it's there.
Wind Waker might be my favorite Zelda, I'm just saying. But no, F-Zero,
I mean, I would say it's for sure my favorite 3D Zelda, but I've beaten it 3 times by this point,
Oh,
so
I
I'm not
got
really
you.
looking
Yeah.
forward to playing it again.
I will
Because
say
I also beat it on the Wii U.
F-Zero is a great example of a game where its art style aged gracefully, because the game, it was polygonal to begin with, but it had some interesting detail. And like the fact that it looks so good still, because yeah, I messed with it I haven't tried it on my Switch too, but I played it at the event, and it was like obviously detail wise, it's not up to snuff with what the Switch 2 could do, but it held up well. Like playing Mario Strikers, a lot of the assets are fuzzy and low res, and but like playing, and that should be coming to to GameCube in the next month or two, I think, on Switch 2. But F-Zero, like man, if you put that out today and say it was like an $8 game, I'd be like, yeah, of course it is. It's an indie racing game, but yet it's F-Zero, and it holds up really well, and the online's really nice, and yeah, I love that Nintendo's breathing new life into F-Zero. Like F-Zero 99 must have done enough that they now have made F-Zero GX basically a game, like a GameCube launch title, but on Switch too. It's great. So glad you shouted out, because yeah, it's worth checking out because it feels very fresh still in every way. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's Switch 2 so far. The story continues. Like I was saying, Donkey Kong Bonanza, there's a direct on Wednesday morning, which by the time people are hearing this would be tomorrow or in the past.
I didn't even know there was one, but I'm probably
It's a 15-minute. The new thing they do with directs is like they call those 15-minute overview trailers a direct now, it seems. That's what Mario Kart was. This one's going to be 15 minutes. We'll see what they say. But yeah, and then it's like a game a month. And they announced Splatoon Raiders, a spin-off of Splatoon, and they're beefing up Splatoon 3 multiplayer with Switch 2 support. Better visuals, better frame rate. So like there's a lot happening constantly with Switch 2, and it's very exciting to be at the cusp of like all this new Nintendo activity. To your point, like having that magic moment of a new console, and like the ride that we now get to go on is it's fun. It's special. It's once every in this case 8 to 9 years. So join us, won't you, for future episodes where we talk about all the experiences of this ride as we go on it together. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any episodes is to follow us on your favorite podcasting app. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're also on YouTube at Ram Nintendo is the channel. That's also, not coincidentally, our Twitter handle at Ram Nintendo. Or individually, you can find us at our various socials. I am JSR7 on Threads and Twitter. Angel is World of Weros with an S on the end on Instagram. And Kevin, who is still with us in spirit, is KVN Gomi over on Twitter and Blue Sky, so you can see him there and see his world travels, perhaps. I'm not sure if he's posting anything, but maybe. But yeah, that pretty much does it for our Switch 2 blowout. Thanks for tuning in, and Angel, I pass it to you for the final word.
Play F-Zero GX.